Hello and welcome. This is Grant Hughes of Grant Hughes Investigates on YouTube. This channel evaluates all aspects of true crime. As you are aware, videos and live streams in this genre often discuss elements of crime that may be disturbing to some viewers. If necessary, take the precautions needed to avoid these feelings. Factual information related to cases is the key to fostering rational true crime discussions. Fortunately, you will find that here. Please hit the like button only once, share the video, and subscribe if you like my content. Thank you very much for watching. Alright, well, the last show, nobody was commenting at all, so I figured I'll try to do a reset and do one later. It's not fun doing a show when nobody's commenting in the comment section. It's like 5 minutes later, the same last comment's the last comment that's there. You know, if you guys aren't interested, then just tell me, hey Gray, I'm not interested in the Kohberger shit. I mean, I'm showing it because this is another hearing, and all of the Kohberger whack jobs think that it's like this really significant hearing. It just, oh my God, everybody. It's insane. I wish, here's the thing is there's a lot of really uneducated people that follow the Kohberger case and pretend that they're just so knowledgeable about the, you know, what it all means and everything. And they're clueless dolts. All right, and it's just the truth. The prosecution's just sitting over there day after day just going, oh, Jesus. Oh, God, we have to go through all this. Oh, Jesus. Oh, here we go. Oh, Jesus. Because when it's all said and done, Ann Taylor knows the data that they have is absolutely damning towards Bryan Kohberger, but she, you know, she's just doing what she's supposed to do as a defense attorney, I guess, or maybe she's prolonging it to get a 1.5-year paycheck without having to really find any new work. I mean, it's really incredible. All right. So anyways, I'm going to play the press conference here. I mean, not the press conference, the hearing that they just had on the 30th with Cy Ray. They also interviewed Payne. I mean, when you go to these Facebook groups, they're so stupid. I mean, it's embarrassing. They type stuff in like, oh my God, he just willy-nilly, he just drew it out of the sky. You know, Payne actually said that he used the, you know, the cast data from somebody else that showed the layout, and he drew a line across, you know, kind of drew it across, and I have it on my map. It's very similar. It's not an exact thing, but that's the route that he believed he took driving across like that based on the cast information. That's all you can do. They don't draw you a line on that software program. They say, oh, look, here's where a phone pinged here. There's one over here like this, and then you kind of correlate it. Man, it's unreal. I've never seen anything like it. So let's just start playing the damn thing. So this is just size. Now, the other, Payne really said nothing. It was just him talking about, you know, that if you need to get the video information, get it from, you know, the people who have, you know, the people that control the video. You'll have to ask them. And at the end, you know what you never hear on these channels is like after you, or the Facebook groups, is that after, at the end, the defense has to listen to the prosecution tell them over and over again all of the different pieces of all of the discovery that they've given them. I mean, she lists it on and on and on and on and on. They've given them everything, you know, and then they keep wanting to get something a little bit more, you know, a little bit more, because you just never know. It's wild. And make sure you guys are communicating, because if I get like a 2-minute lull where nobody's typing, I'm going to end the show again. I think it's ridiculous. So you guys just sit there. I mean, look at right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 10 comments.
There, and then please state your name and spell your last name. I, Ray, R-A-Y. Thank you, sir. You say that?
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Will you tell us what you do?
I have a handful of different jobs, but primarily for my role here, I do a lot of consulting, analysis, and evaluating geolocation data as it pertains to mold dust.
Sounds like your background is mostly in law enforcement, and then you moved into a specialty with cell phones, cell towers, drive testing, radio waves, all that kind of thing.
That would be correct.
Through that and through the training of other officers to do this work and to use your program, have you testified as an expert in this field?
I have. If it's not 100 times, it's right there near it. Roughly 100 times in both state and federal courts.
And have you been qualified as an expert in state courts?
Yes.
In federal courts?
Yes.
How about Idaho?
Don't think I have in Idaho. I can't. I've consulted on a lot of cases in Idaho, but I don't think I've ever had a testimony in Idaho.
That's your first time then?
I believe it is.
Generally, when you...
I don't think any of this stuff will be allowed. Like at trial, she'll try to ask these questions. Well, with her person, but by the time trials comes around, it's going to be a lot more narrow questioning that's going to be allowed. I mean, this is just all crazy, hearings on motions, and it's going to go on and on. This trial might not happen for 3 more years based on Ann Taylor's, just her pace. She seems really lazy to me. I mean, like, she gets all this really, like, I have to go through the video? Well, how about, hey, clown, listen, how about you look at the time of the video and you can eliminate which ones aren't important, okay? And have somebody else look at those on the side and if they find something. But just look at the videos between 2 o'clock in the morning to, say, 5:45 a.m. There you go. You'll have everything you'll need. Just look at that time frame. You don't need to look at the day before or anything like that.
Work, and I'm talking about when you've done your consulting work or worked with an agency to do what you do to review the records and to analyze the data. You usually work with the defense.
This is the first time I've ever testified for defense.
Parents say you usually are a prosecution witness.
That is a very fair statement.
Well, here you are, and you're working with us in Mr. Kohberger's case. What's your role in this case?
Trying to conduct an analysis of all of the geolocation data. At this point, still focused primarily on Mr. Kohberger's device, but ultimately all devices.
How much you want to bet that he reached out to Ann Taylor? He realized, wow, this is a huge case. I could really get my name out there. Yeah, I usually work for prosecution just at the regular rate, but man, I could do this one and get a ton of stuff.
But any geolocation data, which is...
Okay, then let's not, you can't get into, okay, we don't need to cover it then. You're right, we should just forget it. Yeah.
The ability to look at a specific area, whatever range or size that might be at a specific time, and with some type of accuracy and...
It's always great when one of your mods says, wow, I can't really get into this case.
Reliability to a phone's travel. Maybe it's stagnant, and it's moving, when it's not moving, it's off, it's on. Those type of things, but specifically as it relates to network, so the cellular network or a Wi-Fi network, I'm not a forensics digital guy. I don't get into cell extractions. I'm not looking at the metadata on the phone. I'm looking at it very much as a network tool.
If I can make a rough distinction, you're not the person that's going to tell me who they called and which Facebook groups they might be a part of. You're not going to look at the data from the phone like photographs, but you're going to tell me the places this phone went and how it was used while it went somewhere.
Kind of. Let me clean that up a little bit. I will look first at where I believe the phone went, where it traveled, how it got there, how long it took, possible routes. And then to your point, I call it cooperative data. I'm then going to seek out all that data you just talked about to say, okay, we have these 3 photographs, we have this piece of surveillance video, we have these 4 receipts. I'm going to overlay it with my analysis so that I can corroborate the analysis accurate. Or maybe we see activity associated with that person and the phone's not there. Does that person just not have the phone, or is part of our analysis wrong? Maybe surveillance details wrong. We don't know. So eventually I will get back to that data you're talking about, but I'm not the guy that's going to go out and extract that data.
Would it be fair to say that that's data that you would use in a final analysis as it comes in from other sources, that you're the go-to for me to understand how a phone works with a tower and how it moves between towers if the phone's in motion somewhere?
Yes, 100%.
You talked a little bit about drive test data, or drive testing, and that being part of the company that you developed and part of the work that you've done. Is that helpful in understanding the ultimate picture?
Depending on the type of records we're dealing with, it can be very helpful. We're looking at just basic call detail records, CDRs. A lot of times we're just getting connections to a particular cell site, and we can say a site of that cell site. Sometimes the frequencies that are used. Drive testing is really the only way to get a little bit more specific with where that phone may be. But more importantly, we can start to rule out areas we know it's not by drive testing. So just think of drive testing as a forensic evaluation of the actual cellular network in a particular area.
Fair. Are you familiar with AT&T records?
I am intimately familiar with AT&T records.
How long do you think you've been working with AT&T records?
28 years.
In our case that we're here on today, have you reviewed any AT&T records that relate to Mr. Kohberger?
I have.
What have you reviewed?
What AT&T refers to as their regular CDRs, which is a report AU as an atom unit. I have identified the report CT as in Charlestown, which is the subscriber information. There's a really weird name called locabor, which is AT&T's attempt to estimate general locations using latitude and longitude. I don't want to say GPS because it is different than GPS. I believe I've
Here, let me see something if I can. I don't like the way it kind of has a echoey sound. Let me just. Can I flip it like that? Does that?
looked at some ping data from December. For the most part, that's what I've reviewed so far.
I think that's better.
Have you looked at?
Let me try that again. Let me do the other side. We'll see which one sounds better.
Two separate AT&T warrant returns from December 23rd, 2022.
I have.
In your experience with working with AT&T records, is it common or uncommon to have two warrants, one that relies on the content of the first in the same day?
It's not uncommon to see a small time period that produces results that would
Is that better than the? Let's do the other one more time.
increase the desire or the need for a bigger time period of records. Seeing that entire process happen twice in the same day is extremely rare.
When the first AT&T record, we called it today the 48-hour AT&T record of Bryan's call detail record. If you were to take that and do an analysis on a call detail record, how long would that be?
Depends on the analysis. So I'll qualify that answer with looking at what was put into the second warrant that shows us at least parts of that analysis to include a route that was identified. To do it reliably and feel comfortable that I'm accurate, at least 3 hours.
And it shouldn't be echoing anymore. They had two different audio tracks. Now there's just this one or the other one.
And that's if you know what you're doing and you have all the tools at your disposal. Arguably, you could spend half a day or more doing that very easily.
To do that,
It is sped up. I sped it up 140%.
do you just take these records, printed copy, and know what's on there, or do you have to do something with those records?
You'd have to use some type of a mapping platform software, and you would take the digital copy, which is typically a text file. You would import it into that program, which would then map everything. But if I'm going to use those results, search warrant affidavit, for example, there's a process that I'm going to go through to confirm the accuracy. Because in theory, if I'm wrong, the entire linchpin of that case is now hinged on this affidavit that I wrote. So before I commit to swearing out to an affidavit, hey, this is what the phone is doing, X, Y, and Z, there's a further process of just mapping it to validate it. In this case, there's a lot of time distance measurements that need to be performed that can be extremely time consuming. There's some ulterior issues that come up with how that phone is interacting with other cell sites that needs to be analyzed. Again, saying that a very qualified, competent investigator spending half a day just coming up with that basic summary is very reasonable.
In that half a day, you would put that record into a computer program, and a map would be produced.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that they talked about earlier was this. See, in the probable cause affidavit, it shows, why don't I probably turn everything off except that. So here's what it shows in the probable cause affidavit. And this is what Payne, he just kind of drew across like that. That was his sort of, he was trying to just convey what he was seeing in the ping data. And you can drive there, because I mean, there's the route that I drove that's similar. So if you look, this part here isn't similar, but there isn't any roads. See the white lines here? There's no roads there. So he kind of just drew, you know, like that. So it's either this one or there's a road here, so I think it's that one. But right here, everything does kind of match up. See that? So he drew it on there, and they're like, hey, he just kind of came up with that, man. It's totally... No, he used it, the cast data, and determined that that's what he thought it meant, right? That's that's the route that I drove across. Now, whether or not Kohberger actually 100% took that route, nobody knows, as I've said 1,000 times. You know, he could have driven over here and came down here and went like that, you know. Nobody actually knows, but that's the route that they had on there. And it makes sense because it avoids cameras, but he would have to have a cell phone on to traverse those crazy roads. And by the way, you guys, even though this is a later show, if you want to help support the channel, that would be awesome. He kind of struggled on the earlier show, which no longer exists. All right, here we go.
Produced.
Correct.
What other information besides that call detail record would you need to do this analysis?
In this case, I would want the call detail records. I would want the locoboard.
Hey, thanks, Joel Sane. 2020, 22, 2. To my freaks.
It's LOCAVR.
Are you sane, Joel? Hopefully.
And I would want the regional cell tower list from AT&T.
Does AT&T generally provide that regional cell tower list inside of its record that it produces pursuant to the search warrant?
No, I would actually say by policy they do not. It's a very large file that typically does not transmit very well to government email, so they would direct users of where they can go online and download it.
And have you looked at this record, the 48-hour AT&T search warrant record, the return on that?
I have.
Did that include the regional tower list?
It did not.
Okay. So if you are doing this analysis, you put CDR records into a computer program, you put a regional tower list into the computer program, what does it produce?
The CDRs would show me cell sites that the phone connected to. In this case, even within 48 hours, there's hundreds of those cell sites, so it would take a while to really look at that. The regional cell site list would show me the cell towers that the phone's not interacting with, which can be just as important.
Does it spit out product to you, or does it create something that you can reference to write your next warrant?
Depending on which mapping platform you're using, they all create some type of a map that the person doing the analysis on can interact with, and they can change things, they can save things, they can create work product. Depending on that platform, that's saved in different types of maps, but yes, all of them would have some type of a mapping platform.
Okay. Would that be consistent with this past draft that we heard about?
By the way, make sure to get something to drink, you know. I mean, this is Friday night. It's 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock on the East Coast time. You know, just chill out and watch this.
Earlier?
It's my opinion that Corporal Payne probably is misusing some terms there. I don't see any possibility of the FBI CAS team producing a CAS draft report on the 23rd. I think he's probably mistaken that he saw some type of CAS work product, which would be this map, before they export all those results into a report. So I believe that he probably saw some mapping through a mapping platform. It would really surprise me if there was a physical report. It would be completely out of character.
In that first AT&T report, did you request search warrant affidavit? Did you see the request for advanced timing reports?
I did. It's in both search warrants.
Did you get a copy of that in either return?
I have not seen any timing data in this case.
In December of 2022, did AT&T have this advanced timing report?
They absolutely did.
Was it something that they could produce?
It absolutely was.
And in May of 2023, how's it different than May of 2020?
The advanced timing report, we just looked it up on the previous show that no longer exists. We did a, it shows that the timing report is how long the speed of sound is 180, or light is 186,000 miles per second, I think. And so what it does is it just sort of times the ping back from the tower to the car and back, and has a time. I mean, it's some really small fraction, but based on that, you can determine distance from the tower that the car was, and then given the fact that towers either have 2, 3, or 4 segments on them, you can figure out which pi chart, like let's say there's 3 120-degree pi angles, and it pings on one of them, and you can tell the distance. You can say, well, it's generally in this area. And then if you have another tower that maybe picks up a ping just a little bit later, it pings off another pi area, then you can say, well, it's in this area. You know, you can actually start pinpointing where the vehicle was.
Prior to May of 2023, only certain agencies were receiving this timing report, the FBI being one of them. What was referenced earlier about the...
And actually, if you don't know what I'm talking about, there's right here on, I think, this one right here, Bald Butte. If you zoom in, see this? That's the cell tower. Notice how there's 3 distinct sides on it. So if a car's driving right here with its cell phone on, it's going to ping off this face. If it's driving over here, it'll ping off that face right there. And if it's driving somewhere over here to here in this one, it'll ping off of that face, 120 degrees, 120 degrees, 120 degrees, 120 degrees. And it tells you the distance. So it might say, it's 1.5 miles, so right there. But it could be, because it's 120 degrees, 1.5 miles in a line like that. Then, let's say another tower picks it up and, you know, you can do something similar like this. I think there's one here, actually. Yeah, there it is. See, and there's a really good example of it right there. See, that's the 3 sides on it again. And like if that one picked one up next, then you know that it's probably the vehicle is within this area right in here. You know, like, well, I guess if it pinged on the other face there. But you guys understand. Are you confused, Thomas? Are you okay, Thomas? You seem like you're struggling a little bit. Well, let's just pause the show for Thomas. We got to figure out what he's laughing at. What is it, Thomas? What do you got, man? You seem really interesting. I'm just waiting for your interesting comment. Well, she didn't make any jokes, though, Thomas. There was no jokes. So what was the joke that she told? She said, "Thank you, Skylar." Then the next one was, "I hope you're taking care to Linda Howe." And then she called her a beautiful friend just before that. And then the next one was, that was it. So what was funny about that, Thomas? Go ahead. Let's go ahead, Thomas. What was funny about that? We're just waiting. Show's on pause just for you. Hey, Charisma, I'll whistle if I feel like it, okay? All right, thanks. God, don't you hate when people just tell you how to do your show in there? God, nothing worse. God, I hate it. All right, anyways, here we go.
May 23 date, that is when AT&T started offering the same type of reports. It's a little different, but it's the basic timing report to the state and local law enforcement as well. But prior to that date, state and local law enforcement would have to leverage these reports through federal agencies that had access to them.
Let's talk about the return on the second AT&T warrant. Did that have the tower list, the regional tower list in it?
It did not.
Did it have call detail records?
It did.
What time span?
I believe it's from June 23rd of 2022. The historical was as of the date of December 23rd, but there was also a real-time PIN register that was added that extended, I want to say, to the end of December, maybe very first of January.
What's a real-time PIN register?
So the second search warrant asked for a couple of different things. Historical records going back to June 23rd to the current date, which was December 23rd. The second piece that was asked for is real-time data from the network, which is commonly referred to as a PIN register, or trap and trace. And it's the ability of law enforcement to monitor network connections in real time. So as that phone connects to the network for certain reasons, I can see those connections. It's not a wiretap. I can't hear anything. I can't see content, but I can tell the phone is connected to a particular cell tower. There's also what's referred to as ping data, and that's going to be AT&T's estimation of where the phone is at, and that's provided by latitude and longitude, and that comes in every 15 minutes.
What is the purpose of one of those devices?
I should probably clarify. The third thing was the authorization for cell site simulator. So it was a combination of all of these. just as a matter of policy, and I think pretty much every law enforcement agency in the world has adopted this if they can, to use the cell site simulator, you want to see a real-time feed of the phone. Otherwise, you're driving in circles where the phone may not be. So it gives law enforcement the ability to have a general understanding of where a phone is operating or functioning, and then I can use the cell site simulator to do it. There's a number of reasons an agency might do this. This search warrant actually says they were requesting this because they were trying to locate where Mr. Kohberger was.
Yeah, they definitely don't go for the sound on this.
Going to the understanding what's happening right now, is that used so that you don't just know where the phone was 5 minutes ago, but you know where it is right now?
Within a time period, it's not a perfect system. There is a little bit of delay, and the information comes in intermittently. So it's not a real-time feed of giving constant evaluation of where that phone is. But if you know what you're looking at and you've done it long enough, you get a pretty good idea.
I heard you say that this is to try to find out where Mr. Kohberger is. In the information that supported this warrant, didn't they already know where Mr. Kohberger was?
I reviewed a lot of documents that clearly state not only did they know where he was, they had a surveillance team with eyes on. So yes, it would be unusual for an agency to request this type of equipment. And I need to qualify that. This truck driving around is about $1 million. It's not something you just park in the garage at night. It's a very expensive resource. It's a very technical resource that requires a lot of training and skill to use properly. So typically when it's used, it is used for, hey, we don't know where this...
That's a load of shit, Layla. She said, Cy-Ray is a professional and knows his job very well. If he decided to be part of the defense, it's because he knows there's something wrong. How in the hell would he know something was wrong before taking the job? You're full of crap, okay? That's all there is to it. You're full of crap. Cy-Ray is a hired gunman for cell tower shit. And like I said on the earlier show, the case that he got his crap thrown out on was that he was telling everybody that this guy's a stalker. Look at him. Look at what the cell phone data shows. And then the defense team pulled out the GPS information, and it wasn't anywhere near what he was saying. He was nowhere near the person. And they threw it all out, to totally discredited the guy. And for anybody to then think, well, this time he's doing it correctly, and it kind of makes you wonder about any other case this guy's ever worked on at this point.
Person's at, and we need to find him. And to be very honest, I don't have an issue with that part. I've used it.
That's the guy on the
tool.
stand.
It's a great tool.
Yeah.
However, if I know where a subject is and I'm physically watching him, it's probably disingenuous for me to get a search warrant justifying it that I need to find him.
Thank you. I want to switch gears and talk about the CASFIZ program. Okay. Are you familiar with the CASFIZ program?
I am.
Why?
I've worked with a lot of agencies that have used it and accessed it. So I've worked on cases where we've used different mapping platforms to do kind of a compare and contrast as a peer review. So they would create a work product, we would create a work product, we would check each other's work. Because at the end of the day, we're just looking for the accuracy. We want to see if there's any errors in that. I would say I probably have worked with the CASFIZ reports several dozen times, maybe as many as 50. I'm aware of some of the updates they've made. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm aware that they have added a feature that you can now input tower density, so you can create these estimated ranges, if you will. And I'm very familiar with the basic settings that have certain controls you can do, like time zone. What time zone am I going to have? Am I going to use the coverage density? Am I going to save my work? Am I going to just exit the program? I physically have seen those features a number of times.
As it relates to this particular case, have you had a chance to look at any exhibits prepared by Detective Mallory using the CASFIZ program?
Yes, but I should clarify.
So cell tower density, it says on YouTube or Google, can vary by area and operator and is often grouped in areas with high population density. The average cell tower density is 0.4 towers per square kilometer, and areas with at least 0.7 towers per square kilometer are considered urban, while those with fewer are considered rural. Right. That's all that's talking about.
I'm pretty familiar with, I believe it's State Exhibit 48 that was used for the grand jury. The others I had never seen until I believe it was last week.
Gonna need some more comments in the comments section, you guys.
Questions on those, but State's 48 I'm not pretty.
I want to ask you a question about that. I'll ask you some other questions about the records we received last week. I'm going to have you handed what was admitted last week as States R, just another my copy of it so that you know what we're talking about here.
Okay.
I'm curious about what was needed to go into CASFIZ to create that.
So when I open the CASFIZ program, I have to input what I'm going to refer to as source data. So let me define source data is any data that is in electronic format, typically a text file, that the CASViz program is going to link to this mapping session and use that source data to create the images we're seeing. I can tell you right off the bat, without a doubt, this one is linked to two different source data. One is going to be a set of CDR records, so the regular AT&T CDRs, and then this particular exhibit would require the regional AT&T tower list, which is a text file that contains all of the cell site locations, most likely be Western Washington, Idaho, and Eastern Washington, Idaho, and Western Montana is typically that region. But there's no way this map was created without the AT&T tower list. It's physically impossible.
Is the AT&T tower list, was that contained in the call detail records that were obtained by search warrants relating to Mr. Kohberger?
It was not.
I think they're working their way towards trying to do a Frank's motion. Like, look, you know, your data it wasn't even correct when it led to the... they're trying to make it seem like Payne's drawing, wasn't really based on something. And then look at this right here. Their data isn't very accurate. They made mistakes. There was something like this. And it shouldn't have led to the... you could get rid of the... I could say you could almost get rid of the mapping on the probable cause and just show the ping south of Moscow, and then all the White Elantra sightings, and it would still be the same, just as powerful. But hey, guys, if you're out there and you want to help support the channel tonight, this was our donation night, but we really struggled on the last show, so if you're able to help support the channel, we gave $1,700 and some odd dollars to our scholarship fund, and $3,700 went out of the income from the channel to various charities, etc.
All right. And in the CASViz program, when you input the CDR call detail records and you input the tower list, does that program create any type of log?
It does, and I want to make the record really clear on what I'm testifying to, because it can get kind of confusing when we start talking about different versions. The CASViz program offers two styles of mapping. I can just default to a normal size, what they're going to refer to as a wedge shape, which is representing the sector the device connected to.
That's what I think, Brian.
If I was doing that, all I need is the AT&T records, because the AT&T CDRs actually have the tower information that's required for that mapping. As soon as I change that feature, though, to add coverage areas.
See, what's going to happen is this guy's going to come in and try to come up with a whole different place where Bryan Kohberger was that night, but it's not going to work, because he might say the phone, like, you're going to look at the FBI pinging data, and it's going to show that he went south, and then eventually he made his way back up on 195, back into Pullman, and then this guy's going to try to make it seem like, no, he was farther over here the whole time. But then you're going to go, well, gosh, there was a White Elantra missing its front license plate that drove by the A&W restaurant at 328, and then a White Elantra was driving right by the 1122 King Road residence, and then it stopped for a 12-minute period, in which time all 4 victims were murdered. Then right after that, the White Elantra pulls away and leaves at a high rate of speed. And inside that 12 minutes, a knife sheath from a K-bar knife sheath was or DNA from on a K-bar knife sheath was left at the crime scene by Madison Mogen's body. And it turns out that was Bryan Kohberger's DNA, thus proving the White Elantra doing its 4 loops was his. The one that drove by the A&W at 328 was his, missing its front license plate. And Bryan Kohberger is the killer, because even after that, he drove all the way back to Pennsylvania, and he sat around in his house and started, he washed his car over and over and over again. Then he separated his trash from the family trash to put it in the neighbor's trash, because he was so paranoid about his DNA after being pulled over twice on the way back. Because that's what all of us have done. When we've been pulled over twice, we immediately think, they must have my DNA on something. I'm going to go home and start separating my trash. Hey, thanks, Wendy Van Rokel. Yeah, well, thank you. You guys make it so I'm able to do what I do, so thank you. She said, thanks, Gray. You're always so generous with your time and resources. Well,
the estimated coverage areas, and now these little wedge shapes of these sectors are all different sizes. The CAS program has to be linked to a tower list that has location of all of those towers. That's the only way the program knows how to size the cell sites. So I just want to clarify, if I'm mapping the CDRs without coverage areas, all I need is the CDRs. If I'm mapping the coverage areas in the CASViz program, I have to have a tower list. This one, I can see 3 different sectors. Two of them, if anybody sees this exhibit, just to make the record really clear, they're really hard to see. One of them is just under the N as in Nora, under the word Pullman. The other one is right by the L in Pullman.
How about after we go over this, I'll go to that Facebook group and I'll show you the shit that people type in. You guys want to see this?
But they're different sizes, and that tells me right off the bat that the AT&T tower list was used.
And why are they different sizes?
Cell tower density. We see a great big sector right in the middle of this map, and
yeah, that's exactly.
Not familiar with the area here. It's basically south of Pullman and south of Moscow, kind of out in the middle of nowhere.
Thanks,
a lot of cell towers out there.
Yeah, I think you're right, Tracy. That's all they're doing is they're casting out, hoping something, they hook into something, or throwing something at a wall and hope something sticks. Just something. We need something. We're looking for. That's what they're doing. They want stuff that nobody ever asked for, like just incredible stuff in the background. Like, it'd be like this. Have you given us all your videos? Yes, we have, ma'am. Aunt Taylor, we've given all your videos. Now, what kind of cameras were those videos shot on? Can I get a list of what type of cameras those were shot on, please? I'm going to need that to do a complete analysis of it. Tell me what kind of cameras that the surveillance was shot on. We'll get that over to you. Then as soon as she gets that, she'll say, how do we have proof that it was shot on those types of cameras? Can I see the physical camera itself and the registration number on each of the cameras that filmed the surveillance footage? That's what she's going to do. That's what she's doing here on every little piece of data. And I don't know if it's because she even alluded to something that sounded conspiratorial here in sort of like the closing part. She's making it sound like that people are, and this fits right into the YouTube crazy wackos who believe this shit.
So one tower covers a very large area. Then the other two are going to be in Pullman. It's kind of hard to see on this map, but I believe they are going to be ones that are on Washington State University campus. A lot more cell towers, the coverage is much smaller. So it's just a way to look at tower density to kind of estimate how far certain towers may connect to a phone where others may have a very short range.
And is it based on that difference in towers that causes you to know that a certain type of tower report was used?
Yeah, it is a basic algorithm that uses tower density, and the only way to determine tower density is to have a list that has all of the towers, not just the ones that were used by the cell phone.
Okay. Do we have the list of the tower list that was used by Detective Mallory in developing that exhibit?
Detective Mallory stated he did not use a tower list to create this exhibit, so no, but I'm not sure how to answer that other than I haven't seen one.
Should it be there?
It is physically impossible to create this map without it.
If you had the logs from the CastBiz program, would that give you more information about what was used?
It would. We would need the CastBiz program as well. The logs are saving certain settings, and it's a JSON.
Hold on.
So it's just a way to look at tower density to kind of estimate how far certain towers may connect to a phone where others may have a very short range.
And is it based on that difference in towers that causes you to know that a certain type of tower report was used?
Yeah, it is a basic algorithm that uses tower density, and the only way to determine tower density is to have a list that has all of the towers, not just the ones that were used by the cell phone.
Okay. Do we have the list of the tower list that was used by Detective Mallory in developing that exhibit?
Detective Mallory stated he did not use a tower list to create this exhibit, so...
I wonder if he really said he did not use a tower list, or if he just said, I don't have the tower list that I used.
No, but I'm not sure how to answer that other than
let's prove
I haven't seen one.
Should it be there?
It is physically impossible to create this map without it.
If you had the logs from the CastBiz program, would that give you more information about what was used?
It would. We would need the CastBiz program as well. The logs are saving certain settings, and it's a JSON format, which is just a software language. We could load that JSON file into the CastBiz program, and for the most part, we could replicate exactly what was done.
If I understand that, to turn it around, in order to replicate that and to see what was done, you would need a CastBiz program. Is that right?
Correct, and preferably the same version that was used.
And you need a JSON file that was made by Detective Mallory. Is that right?
Correct, and depending on where the software program is, we would probably need the source data because it may not be automatically linked. Anybody who did PowerPoint 10 years ago, you make a PowerPoint on one computer, you save it on a thumb drive.
No, that's not true, Lila. Here's what Lila said. Completely normal for a lawyer defending his client. There is everything on YouTube. People who make a living talking about speculating just like you. Yeah, what, on this case? I hardly even talk about this case anymore. I already know, listen, this is one of those cases where unless you're an absolute idiot, you know that Bryan Kohberger is the killer, okay? Or you're a conspiracy nutter or somebody who believes in that kind of stuff. Now, I think it's possible he might be found not guilty because of people like you that exist, or a hung jury or something. I don't know if it'd be not guilty. I could only see a hung jury situation because there's a lot of really stupid people out there. Yes, you are, Thomas. Yes, very, very certain for that. Let's see. Let's go.
A different computer, all the links are broken. It could create a situation like that. So you probably need the original source data as well, just to be sure.
What's the original source data?
In this case, it would be the AT&T CDRs and the cell tower, the regional cell tower list.
From that time?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, no, if we're trying to recreate this work, this is where it gets a little bit complex. We would need the exact AT&T tower list that Maori.
See, I'm not going to pretend that somebody's a genius or like has some like, wow, that's really interesting that you, okay, can you explain it? Wow, that's so awesome. You think Bryan Kohberger's innocent? Wow. Yeah, it's lunacy at this point. Like there is no chance that he's not the killer in this case. Zero. Every single thing points to him, even himself. Where were you that night? Well, shit, you got me on camera a few times. Well, I was driving around. Looking at stars, listening to Steve Miller.
Use but didn't use, which makes it really difficult because AT&T updates these on a fairly regular basis. If he used a November list and I use an April list, the results could be different.
Okay. Why would the results be different? And given the month of the day,
AT&T could have added or subtracted cell sites in the area, which would change tower density. They could also reconfigure those cell sites so maybe they point different directions.
They tried to
given
connect
the rural
that.
area,
the clown guy. He tried to make it sort of connect Delphi and this case. It's crazy.
Don't think you're going to see much of a change, but it's always possible. So if we're talking about recreating this exhibit exactly the way it was, we would need not just the regional tower list, we would need to know which version of the regional tower list he used.
Is that generally why people in your field save their work?
We're talking best practices 101. We're creating a work product that is going to be used in a forensic nature, not showing how an extraction is done, not showing the source data that I use to create an exhibit. It happens, but for the most part, it's unheard of, especially somebody who is a subject matter expert in digital forensics. I won't say I haven't seen it, but it is rare.
I guess so.
Thank you. Let's move on and talk about the CAST draft. Have you?
I'm sorry, Ms. Bailey. The CAST report
Draft. Have you?
Can I ask how much longer on this? Because we're 90 minutes. I need to give the court reporter a break. But if you're going to finish, in 5 or 10 minutes, that's probably fine.
Your Honor, I would say we probably have 15 or 20 minutes or so. If the court wants to do a break, we can.
Yeah, let's take a recess. We'll be back in 10 minutes. Okay, we are back on record. This is State versus Kohberger, CR 2922-2805.
Maybe the judge is a stealth judge, Like this is just his show. And then once the trial goes on, he's not the same guy. Because I've seen moments, right? Have you seen those moments where he is not quite as jovial and everything? See, I think it's just like, here we go. This isn't going to happen for a year or so. Just give the wide latitude, let them talk, do all their little crap, and then he starts reining things in at the end. We'll see how it goes.
Everybody I identified previously are still here in the courtroom. Mr.
Now, listen, let me ask you something, Ray. Now, when you look at that document there, did it look like, what kind of penmanship were they using? Well, it looks like blue pen. Now, can you tell me, did they write down what type of pen they used to write that document? No, they didn't. Oh, and usually what they'll say is I use a number 2 Bic pen when they wrote it down, those bastards.
Ray is testifying. We are still on direct.
Hey, thanks, Jessica
Thank you,
Schubach.
Mr. Ray, when we left off our break, I was about to talk to you about the CAST draft report. Okay, so we'll start there. Have you reviewed a CAST draft report in Mr. Kohberger's case?
I have.
And from your review of that report, can you tell what records were relied on by Agent Balance to create that report?
That report would include, he had to have the AT&T CRs, the full 6 months. a tower list to make some conversions that I'm seeing on the report, and also drive test data, which would be another form of source data, and then a mapping platform to ingest the drive test data into, to analyze it, to create these shapes that are then put into the draft report.
Okay, I think I have that. Do we have the same call detail records that Nick Valance used to create his draft report?
Yes, well, I believe so.
Do those records appear to come from the December 23rd,
He was like, was I supposed to say that? Was I supposed to say, yes, I believe so? Or do you want me to say no, and then you could use,
2022 to AT&T warrants?
I would say primarily the second warrant from what I've reviewed.
And is that because the cast draft report spans the full 6 months of those records?
That is correct.
Okay. And those records, did those come from the second AT&T search warrant?
That is also correct.
Can you tell anything about the tower report or how the tower information was used by Agent Nick Valance?
The tower identifiers that are predominantly used, not exclusively, but predominantly used in the cast draft report did not come from the report AU. If there's a conversion that can be made, and someone would have to have the national AT&T tower list, or at least the regional list, and I would take information from the CDRs. I would look at certain columns in this AT&T tower list, and I could get certain identifiers that are now being populated to the cast report, if that makes sense.
Do we have a copy of the tower list that you believe was used?
We recently received 4 different versions. And when I say versions, they're just by month. And I believe we have August, September, November, and maybe December. Maybe it's in October right after Becky. So far, I've only had time to look at the November. And from what I can tell, all of that appears to be accurate.
Would we need the October or the missing month to be able to do our work accurately?
It's a really good practice. I'm sure that's why the FBI included it. If I'm mapping records over a long period of time, like in this case, 6 months, I do want to see the different versions of the tower list to make sure that if a change was made within the network during that 6-month period, a tower I map in July may map differently in November. So it is important to have that data.
We have 4 of the 6 months, but not the other 2.
Correct. It would be helpful to even maybe see May, because there may not have been an update made in late June, early July. So May's would be what I would start with.
Can you tell if drive testing was done to create that cast draft report?
Yes, there's images in the latter part of the report of around slides 100 and above. I believe there's a total of 4 images that were populated to that report that would require drive testing.
When somebody's doing drive testing, do you expect data to be produced?
Absolutely. Creating a work product that uses drive testing and then coming into court and testifying without the drive testing is no different than creating an exhibit like this and then saying, well, we don't have to produce the AT&T records that created this. The source data for drive testing is the drive.
I mean, what do you think? Are they saying dry testing or drive testing on that? I would think it was like drive testing, like get a car out there with the phone on and see what's going on. Let's see. FBI cellular analysis survey team. I don't know. Oh wait, there it is. Let's see. CAS will utilize industry standard survey gear, drive test equipment to determine the true geographical coverage. Yeah, I know it. Okay, yeah. I thought it was saying drive testing. That made more sense. All right.
Drive test.
Do we have the drive testing that was done by the FBI to help create that report?
We have what I believe is the majority. There are some significant pieces missing. I can't say that those missing pieces exist and haven't been turned over, or they were erroneously not collected. I don't know which, but there are some pretty significant pieces that are missing.
I'm going to ask you some questions about that. But first, I want to know when you first saw it.
Yeah, so it says in this one, it says CAS supports the FBI as well as state, local, and tribal law enforcement investigation through the analysis of call and data and tower information the presentation adds. This says that can include in obtaining the data from telecommunication companies in the first place, analyzing tower dumps that can show which phones were in an approximate location, and they did that in Delphi, at a given time, providing expert witness testimony and performing drive tests to verify the actual coverage of a cell tower. So maybe it means that they have a phone on and they drive around. I mean, I guess that's what they're talking about, just to see how it interacts with the towers. And maybe they can even determine what road somebody was on by doing a drive test and go, oh, look, it has the same ping information.
Drive testing data that was produced to us in Discovery. What did that cover?
I found a file in the Discovery, I want to say early December, that included drive test, but it was about a 3-minute sample that covered less than a quarter of a mile in a completely irrelevant location. So it
really, how's this guy going to be better than the FBI? He's going to get up there. Hey, I've got a car to sell you, everybody. Just look right here. It's absolutely lovely, everybody. It's got 4 wheels, it's got 4 doors, and a windshield, and it works. And the FBI guys come up in their suits with it. Yeah, come on, this guy. Jeez.
added no value to my analysis at all.
What were you looking for? What time frame and location were you looking for based on the CAS draft report review?
I would expect significant drive testing around any location that coverage maps were being used in the CAS report. I would expect significant documentation on potential routes that this device may have taken. I would expect significant documentation on the crime scene.
You just told us that you think we have most of it, but there's some significant parts that are missing.
Yeah, and I want to qualify that just so it's really clear, because I understand it's starting to get very technical. There's over 500,000 lines of data that was turned over. So I'll make it clear, there's a lot of data that has been produced. I would say, in my opinion, looking at what's been produced, probably 2 or 3% is missing. But it's not the amount of data or the time of the data, it's the locations of the data. Some of the most significant locations in this case were missing some data.
Those significant locations, have they been depicted or captured on the CAS draft report?
Hey, let's see what it says right here on Chat GPT on what is drive testing in FBI CAS system. Drive testing in the context of the FBI Cellular Analysis Survey Team refers to a method used to analyze and map cellular network coverage and signal strength in specific geographic areas. The process is crucial for law enforcement investigation that involve mobile phone data, as it helps determine the location of mobile devices based on their interaction with cell towers. Here's how the drive testing works in the FBI CAS system. That's pretty sweet. Yeah, this AI shit is actually pretty good. I was kind of hard on it at the beginning, but you know. Equipment setup. Specialized equipment is installed in a vehicle, including cell signal receivers and GPS units. This equipment is designed to measure the strength and quality of cellular signals from various cell towers as the vehicle moves through an area. The vehicle drives through the area of interest, continuously recording data on cell signal strength, tower IDs, and GPS coordinates. This data is collected across different... this makes sense. That makes sense, because then you can compare it. This data is collected across different cellular networks and frequencies to ensure comprehensive coverage. The next one is, the collected data is analyzed to create a detailed map of cellular network coverage in the area. The map shows the signal strength and the coverage boundaries of each cell towers. Each cell tower, yeah, so like you driving around, and then as soon as it loses a signal and it's maybe picked up by another tower, it determines that. The information obtained from drive testing is used to corroborate or challenge location data derived from mobile devices. For example, if a suspect's phone connected to a particular cell tower at a specific time, drive testing can help determine the likely location of the phone at the time based on the tower's coverage area. Drive testing helps in validating the reliability of cell tower data and can be crucial in cases where precise location information is necessary, such as in investigations of crimes, missing persons, or verifying alibis. This is perfect. I almost wrote this for this. That's pretty amazing. It provides a more accurate and empirical basis for interpreting mobile phone location data, enhancing the FBI's ability to reconstruct movements and locations of suspects and victims. Yeah, that was pretty amazing. Gotta admit. And now I'm trying to go back.
Yeah.
There we go.
And tell me what those locations are. What are we missing?
I am unable to find any measurements along, I believe it's 270, the Moscow-Pullman Road. If you drove the most direct route from Pullman to Moscow or vice versa, pretty much as soon as you're leaving Pullman to the time that you arrive in Moscow, we are missing that entire stretch. If there's ever been a case that we need to look at, what does it look like when a phone travels from Pullman to Moscow? This is probably the case. We have the neighborhood around the crime scene, but we don't have the crime scene. Normally, that wouldn't be
Hello, everybody. Type stuff in, you guys.
It's a flat area. There's not a lot of vegetation or mountains. You could probably interpret the same. The location of this crime scene is very unique because it sits on a mountain. Part of it is shielded by a mountain. There's a lot of other big, thick, dense apartment buildings there. Your phone is going to behave differently inside of that residence than it might on the road behind the residence or in front of the residence. I can't find any drive test data that actually encapsulates any part of the property.
You talked about the device that helps do the drive testing or that captures the data when you're doing the drive testing. What's that called again?
It's a drive test scanner. The most common one used in law enforcement is created by Road and Schwartz, that same company I referred to earlier. I'm familiar with the hardware that the FBI uses, and it is a Road and Schwartz scanner.
Is it called Gladiator?
Gladiator is the company
I don't think
that
so, Tracy.
sells the product to the FBI. Gladiator actually buys this product from Road and Schwartz, and it does what they call white labeling. So they buy the hardware from Road and Schwartz, and they kind of slap their sticker on it, and they put their software in it, and then they sell it to the FBI.
Well, if it's
But
named
ultimately, it is a Road and
Gladiator,
Schwartz
it's got to be good.
And once you have that piece of hardware, once you have this device, does it just work forever, or is there anything that has to be done to make sure it's working properly?
It is a technical piece of equipment that takes measurements. It is required to be calibrated. The best way that for probably everybody in courtroom to think of, if we go a little old school, is the old breath test. If you had a DUI and law enforcement couldn't produce the calibration records of the breath test, it was really problematic. Similar thing here. We want to see that the device is calibrated. In this case, it's really important.
Yeah, Kim, that was in the case that he got his information thrown out. That's exactly right.
Because, keep in mind, I reviewed thousands of these drive tests over my career. There is a significant gap that I believe there's something malfunctioning in the equipment, or the operators are just not.
You're absolutely right there, Tracy. I mean, this guy might as well be. Here, let's see if we can help this guy out a little bit. Hold on a second.
Paying attention. I can't tell you which one it is. So in this case, the calibration records to show that that device is functioning properly are really critical.
Do we have those calibration records on the device that was there more than one device used?
There's actually two devices used.
And was this drive test done on just one day? It was a one-time shot?
No, I think there's maybe 5 days total that I've seen drive test data collected.
Okay. So now let's talk about the calibration for this instrument or this machine. Did you get records for all the machines that were used by the FBI in this case?
We got the calibration records that were taken prior to the use of these of the samples. It'd be really helpful to have the calibration records after the use. So we kind of need to bookend those because we know that it left Road Schwartz factory in October and everything was working great.
Holy
When it came
shit,
back,
this
we don't know when it
guy.
came back, and we don't know if it was functioning properly when it came back. It's not uncommon for there to be errors. If I saw a report and said it came in and had 2 errors, it's not the end of the world. The sky doesn't fall. You have to get into the documentation to see what
Good
those
evening,
errors were.
everybody. We've got a
Normally,
rodeo clown.
The device kind of self-calibrates itself. If you know what you're looking at, the major concerns that you would see, the calibration is off. It becomes very obvious because results are really flawed.
Gray, he's saying some really valuable stuff, you bastard. He just said it self-calibrates. How dare you?
That's where I have a concern in this case, is we have what I consider
Gray, are you
data
imitating
for
me?
specifically a location
Yeah, I'm imitating
where
you,
the
yeah.
instrument is running. There's no doubt it's functioning, but it's not properly collecting AT&T data, which is concerning as to why.
That is interesting.
Because there were multiple drive tests done, and you talked about bookending these calibration reports, would you need to bookend all of the time that the drive testing was done with these calibration reports? And what I'm saying is if there's something done in November and then drive testing done in December and then more drive testing done in January and then maybe some in March, do you need the bookend calibration reports around each of those drive tests?
You would. To date,
Yeah, I could see some lady on a phone call dating app with this guy say something like, "Hey, I'm about to take a shower there, Si." Well, have you heard about the new cast system here? Well, I tell you what, if the towers were just relevant and based on the actual information that was found, you would find that... Okay, goodbye, sir.
I haven't seen any drive test data, I believe, beyond January 5th. And I'm not sure the time zone, so maybe it could creep into January 6th. But if there's any drive test data after the first week of January, I'm unaware.
Okay. So in our case, Which months are we missing?
For the calibration,
Yes.
whatever the next calibration, the FBI would choose when to send these devices in. So whenever that next calibration report was generated for these two devices.
On the calibration certificates we have, I think you told us that after the maintenance, it went back into service and passed inspection was functioning properly.
But when it came in, it didn't have multiple errors. But when it went out, it was functioning properly.
Is that why you need to see the next one on the other side of the drive testing?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, when we're thinking about the data the drive test data that we have that's missing some significant portions, could it be because the machine wasn't working right all the time they tried to do drive testing?
Yes.
Okay. Is it also possible that the FBI agents using this machine weren't properly trained to do the drive test data or to do the drive testing and collect data?
That's very possible.
I know of the two FBI agents from prior lives. I believe they're properly trained.
Okay, I like that. I did like that he said that. I remember I heard it earlier. It was cool that he didn't cave to the Ann Taylor sort of setup. He goes, nope, I think they're properly trained.
But when it went out, it was functioning properly.
Is that why you need to see the next one on the other side of the drive testing?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, when we're thinking about the data the drive test data that we have that's missing some significant portions, could it be because the machine wasn't working right all the time they tried to do drive testing?
Yes.
Okay. Is it also possible that the FBI agents using this machine...
Yeah, that's what I hate with the word possible. That's why I can't stand when people say that. He goes, look at his face even on that. Well, I'm not going to be able to rewind it, but let's see. Maybe I can. Right there.
The drive test data that we have that's missing some significant portions.
Watch this.
Could it be because the machine wasn't working right all the time they tried to do drive testing?
Yes.
Yeah, because it's possible, right? Like 1 in a billion, but sure, if I was going to... Is there life on another planet in our galaxy? Yeah, I think there probably is, look at this guy. She did get him to say yes, though. I think that's important for her.
Is it also possible that
Is it also possible? God, I hate that in the true crime world. People always say, God, Gray, is it possible they didn't check the Ring doorbell cameras around the neighborhood after the murder? No. I'll just say no. It's not possible. Even though it is, right? Like, it is possible that law enforcement was so negligent that they forgot to check the Ring doorbell cameras on all 1,900 neighbors right next to the murder house. But
FBI agents using this machine weren't properly trained to do the drive test data or to do the drive testing and collect data?
Were they properly trained? Watch it.
I know of the two FBI agents from prior lives. I believe they're properly trained.
Okay, boom. Good.
So we're looking at...
He's looking for his future
either
work.
The machine itself isn't functioning properly, or could that data have been pulled out of what we got?
If we're talking about possible scenarios that would cause the shortcoming of data, maybe it was never captured in the first place. I can't speak to that. The machine erring, at least during one portion of this drive test, I've seen similar errors before. I'm pretty sure they had a small period of time where it had been a very busy day and it kind of gave up for a little while, like any computer will, and needed to be reset. Could things be extracted and us not know? It's always possible. I can't rule that out.
Oh, Jesus.
Is the missing data important
Is
to
it
you
possible
to fulfill your duties in Mr. Kohberger's case?
Oh, God.
I don't recall when I got involved in this case on the day where I could actually start looking at evidence.
Here we go.
I've had a concern since the very first day I saw the Castor app report that there are significant errors in the drive testing. It was before I even saw the drive testing. I can look at the coverage areas. I can tell you they're wrong. So, yes, it's not a concern that they're wrong. People make mistakes. We can fix things. It's a concern that I still don't have the source data that any expert, not just myself, but anybody could sit down and look at and say, okay, I see what's happening here. Here's how we fix this. Unfortunately, that mistake has a ripple effect, and I'm seeing multiple errors that are happening as a result. So that's why this data is important. We've reached a point that we need to determine: is this just human error? Is this accident?
All right, you guys, I got a goal here. If we get another $38, I'll donate. That'll just get us to 100 for the show. I'll donate 5 memberships. All right, let's do it. $38.
Is it intentional? Is there other things at play here that's changing this narrative to where there's clearly some manipulation of the original data?
And having that data, will that help us answer that question?
It's the only way we're going to answer.
I mean, they're just looking for stuff. Now, apparently, I mean, I guess we'll have to listen to what he was saying. Something about 80% they didn't grab. Or...
that question.
All right, I have just a couple of other questions for you, and I'm going to depart the cast report and the drive test data a little bit. Except, as an investigator or as a person doing an analysis of this case, did the drive test data tell you where a phone traveled to indicate other investigation that you should do?
Technically, the call detail records tell us that. The drive test data help us become more accurate with that. AT&T is one of the best companies in this particular situation to show device movement because we get a constant connection.
Yeah, wow, Twizzle Sticks. Wow, that's so interesting. 1 in a billion? When the device was turned in last time, it wasn't set properly. They recalibrated, then sent it out, then they needed documentation for when it was turned in to see if it was working. Hey, look at that. YouTube bad actors. Hey, look at that. Another one of the clowns. Hey, these guys are awesome. They're so awesome. They always show up in here. Yeah. See, every time I ask for get the freaks to help support the channel, I'm the only YouTube bad actor for these guys. The rest of them, it doesn't matter. You know, they can sit there and do drama shows all day long and get super chats. They don't care about them. But on my show, I try to actively raise super chats because I need to make an income on the channel, but I also give away a lot of it too. You know, we've already given over $20,000 this year to true crime related charities. If you can find another YouTube channel out there that's even close to that, let me know.
So when, and I will emphasize, when all of the data is mapped, and I'm talking about the CDRs, we can get a really good idea. Hey, a phone traveled north for 10 miles and then it traveled east. The drive test data would actually allow us to replicate and recreate these tower handoffs that we're seeing to come up with that first theory. To now we can say, in order to do this and hit these towers in the sequence that it did, it has to be driving.
Who said you couldn't watch, Twizzle Stick? Your whole sentence made no sense to me. Show you on the screen? I have no idea what you're talking about.
On this highway, and then when it went east, it most likely turned onto this highway. So the drive test data helps us get very specific with what the CDRs mean.
As an investigator in performing an analysis work done in this case, when you have the CDRs, the call detail records that tell you where a phone's been, is that useful in directing your investigation to what other evidence might be out there, like videotapes?
I have to qualify my answer to it because I'm not sure if you're asking specifically for this case or in general. Yes, you map all of the data, and especially if you're going to justify 6 months worth of data on somebody's cell phone, you map every single connection that there is in those records. From what I have reviewed,
No, 5 memberships is $25, Twizzle Stick. You're a moron. Sorry, you don't understand.
I mapped 6% of the data that came in. Mallory's testimony and what I've seen through here, he was up to about 18%. So by either standard, more than 80% on both accounts were never mapped or accounted for. And I'm not talking overall from every single day for 6 months. I'm talking about the time frames that are chosen. So for example, this time period that's represented here is where I'm getting the 18%.
And that's
right, but when you buy memberships, it's $5 a piece, Twizzle Stick. You've never been generous enough to buy a membership on a channel for anybody, so you wouldn't know. What an idiot.
48 hours.
Just as specifically from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. on the morning of the 13th, arguably the most critical time period of this entire investigation, they mapped a handful of connections. When I say handful, they mapped 18%. When you add the other 82%, it tells a much more detailed story. When we put the drive test data on top of that,
thanks, Ivan,
you can get even more refined. But to answer your question on any case, that's this case. On any case, and we teach best practice. We've established best practice.
No, he didn't say that. He didn't say
law
that.
enforcement of what you do with this type of data.
He didn't say there was no video that depicts the car. Sorry for your ignorance. He never said that. They might say that on the Facebook channels or pages, but
it is a terrible practice to.
No, I don't think they matter. I don't think they matter to you at all, Twizzle Sticks. You're just you're an asshole troll that showed up here, acting like a complete fool. So you're not welcome here anymore. And goodbye. Thank you very much.
Cause for this very detailed call detail records that give breadcrumb-like trails for individuals, and then not map it. We justify the entire probable cause statement saying we have to have this. Not mapping it and then making decisions in work products with leaving that out is extremely problematic.
Last week, we received some additional records that Detective Mowry found when he was preparing for his testimony on this mission to compel. Have you had a chance to review those records?
I have. A couple of them are very technical, so I'm not going to say that I've mastered them yet, but I have a good idea of what was provided and what it means.
Based on your, I guess not as thorough as you'll do, review of these records, do you have a sense as to whether these records matter to us and what we're doing to defend Mr. Kohberger?
Given the timing of these records, from what I can tell in the emails that were produced by Detective Mowry, these records were generated on the 23rd of December. It's when everything started with probable cause statements. If I had to pick a time when the wheels fell off the wagon, that's the date. There are statements and there's assumptions made in the records that will never be supported by the data. There's a lot of claims that are said in these emails, and even the name files of the records are problematic. It does not represent what it's claimed to represent.
Wow. Anybody with an opposing view. Okay, we got one of those trolls again. Over and over again. He's got multiple accounts. He's going to come on, type in over and over and over again.
Sounds like those might be pretty important to us defending Mr. Kohberger.
I could give examples, but I know it's a very technical thing, so I'm not. It could be extremely impactful to either side. I'm not saying just in defending Mr. Kohberger. It could be extremely impactful in prosecuting Mr. Kohberger. The problem's the problem, not what the data helps or hurts.
The content of the data, though, is it helpful to us in representing Mr. Kohberger?
It absolutely is helpful.
Here, hold on. Let's do it. Let me do a poll here. Let's get the real number here. Yeah, that's exactly what it was, Lisa. That's exactly, you nailed it. You called it. Wow, look how many. That's amazing. Wow. I want everybody to vote. Everybody in here vote on this. That's what I always thought, that there's that many of these wackos watching this shit. They're like, hey, Gray's on again. Wake up, oh, wake up. Gray's on again, wake up! Ha! That's amazing, man. Jesus, what a bunch of psychos. Think what kind of life those guys actually have. You know what's amazing? If I just went away and did something completely different, $200,000 would not have made it into charities. Maybe 10, you know. People might have gone, oh, here's some. But they don't care about that. They don't care. But like I said earlier, guys, let's get rid of the trolls by helping support the channel. Make the trolls pay, all right? So if we get another 34 in, I'll give away 5 memberships, all right? Let's do the troll bug spray super chats. All right. Sound good? That's what I thought.
Everything that I've seen to date is concerning to me because it's exculpatory, and I need to clarify this. When all of the records are produced and the dust settles, and I have time to review it, I reserve the right to say, no, now I'm seeing everything. Here's what I'm seeing.
There it is.
Because of the piecemealing of the data, because of the missing data, because of data that I'm reviewing that is
missing data.
Incredibly inaccurate.
Incredibly inaccurate. See, that's him saying this. You know why he's saying that? Because he got a paycheck from the defense team. Not because it's incredibly inaccurate. It's because it's what he's saying is because he needs to be saying that for the defense team. He is on their payroll now. You think the FBI is going to give you, in like a case like this, there's no political motivation at all, that they're going to give you false information? I mean, what would be the point? They know what they're doing over there. The FBI invented the caste system. This guy right here is a rodeo clown.
Everything that is missing.
Thanks, Ivan Victor and Paulette Leonard. We're now only at 27 away. Now 25. Do I hear 25? Do I hear 25, 15, 20, 25, 30?
Is absolutely in the benefit of the defense right now. There's other reports that I believe are missing.
The troll spray. Thank you, trolls.
Mr. Kohberger, or in the benefit of the state. If I was contacted on December 1st by Moscow Police Department There are things I would have absolutely said, you did this today, do not hesitate, and especially come December 23rd. Not because of who it's helpful for, but because those documents are the only things we're going to get that's going to be able to allow us to interpret what it really means.
And look at that, Holly, Miranda Holly. Almost got us there. We're 5 away. Who's got the fiver? Who's got the fiver?
When we don't get those documents and we piecemeal things, it creates this narrative that is very harmful for the defense's case. As I've got more documents, I'm finding it's not harmful for the defense's case. There's a lot of misstatements that have been made. So yes, to your question, to date, it is very helpful for Mr. Kohberger. I reserve the right to change that.
Oh, wait, yeah. You see what he just said right there? Hold on.
Because of data that I'm reviewing that is incredibly inaccurate. Everything that is missing is absolutely in the benefit of the defense right now. There's other reports that I believe are missing.
Look what he just said. Everything that's missing is going to help the defense. How does he know that? He makes a declarative statement as if it's true, that it's exculpatory.
That I can't tell you are in the benefit of Mr. Kohberger or in the benefit of the state. If I
Okay, now you're being honest.
was contacted on December 1st by Moscow Police Department, there are things I would have absolutely said, you did this today, do not hesitate, and especially come December 23rd. Not because of who it's helpful for, but because those documents are the only things we're going to get that's going to be able to allow us to interpret what it really means. When we don't get those documents and we piecemeal things, it creates this narrative that is very harmful for the defense's case. As I've got more documents, I'm finding it's not harmful.
We love the trolls, don't we? Yeah. Hey, thanks, Joel. Saying, what are these other people saying? Because he has a brain unlike you. Oh, okay. Yeah. He's got a brain. Right. It's awesome. I'm not sure who you're talking to. Who's Isle? Oh, Gray. Back of the video. Yeah, I'll go back to that. Yeah, he was talking about it. I remember listening to it earlier. I don't know why that comment was removed by... That was probably an accident. They were trying to get rid of probably not Wiz. Whatever the hell. What kind of name is that? Hold on a second. And here we go. Let's see if we can give this to a couple trolls anyways. And there we go. So you guys did it. There we go. 5 freaking memberships. Get it? Freaking memberships. We'll go back and listen to that part later, okay?
For the defense's case, there's a lot of misstatements that have been made. So yes, to your question, to date, it is very helpful for Mr. Kohberger. I reserve the right to change that.
Wait, no, but how is it helpful? Like he says, to date, it's very helpful for Mr. Kohberger that there's missing information. No, it's not. You're telling people that it's helpful and wishing it was helpful, but until you see the data, you won't know if it's helpful or not, right?
In 6 months, depending on what type of documents are released and what's out there.
Fair enough. I need just a minute, but I don't think I have any other questions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, thank you. I don't have any other questions right now, but hold on. I lost your mic.
All right. Ms. Taylor, thanks.
No, I don't have any questions at this time.
All right. Okay, so it's the excuse.
You may, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Ray.
Okay, bye. See ya.
You're free to stay. You're free to leave if you like.
Okay, so before this guy, we get moving. Where are we at? 108.22. Remember that. Let's go back to the last guy. We were just told it's really important what he said in the last minute and a half. Okay, he's right there. 31. Let's go back to like 28.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I understand that you had a lot of help on canvassing and collecting things. There was a lot to do. But as the lead agent and the lead department, is there some kind of inventory?
Oh, by the way, welcome to Powder Packs. Joel Sane. Hey, all right, Joel. Misbehaving Neckabee, Tracy Reed, and Aries Dom. Welcome.
Of these videos, like a general inventory that would help me know what you have and why you don't have the relevant timeframes?
The inventory that would be most useful to you is the inventory of evidence that has been booked into the Moscow Police Department. That's
Hey,
the
thanks,
inventory.
Linda.
And I did come see the evidence. That's fair. I did come see the evidence. We didn't watch videos together, though, did we?
No, ma'am.
And would you agree that that evidence is on thumb drives with stickies on papers that tell us different things, but not like an inventory of what's on each thumb drive.
I am not aware of an inventory of each individual thumb drive.
Okay. So for us to do that together, we take some days to inventory it all together. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's my best way to try to find this Monday's machine.
Sure.
And Watson Cardi Construction.
Yes, ma'am.
That's it. Thanks.
All right, Ms. Taylor, anything to follow up on that?
Oh, just one second. Thank you. I just want to clarify what's in your probable cause act.
Welcome, Whitney.
Does your probable cause affidavit state
And thank you, Linda. Okay, now here is the...
that Kohberger or White Elantra went on US 95 south of Moscow?
No, it's not.
Okay. What does it state?
Memory serves states that the next time, well, it states that a vehicle was seen leaving the area of the crime scene.
Right. So I remember, I know this whole thing by heart. This is what he says. The vehicle is seen leaving the crime scene. So right here at 420 at a high rate of speed, it goes this direction. Based on not showing up on various cameras, they know it went this direction, and he has to have been there to know how to get to here. So it makes it to here to Palouse River Drive. Okay, they know that. And here we go. If I can get it playing again.
McKean Road, leaving via Walenta Drive, which heads south from that area, and then terminates on Conestoga at Palouse River Drive. That's what the probable cause affidavit states.
Thank you, Kim.
And to your knowledge, are there other paths of travel south of Moscow besides US 95?
This is what he explains.
And what's that other route?
Here's another route.
I believe the one that was referenced in the affidavit goes from Palouse River Drive, which turns into Sand Road at the state line, not the Idaho-Washington state line. That road continues westbound until south of Pullman and eventually leads north into Pullman at Bishop Boulevard, if memory serves.
Just like that.
And does that path of travel go by Watson Carey
Bishop
Construction?
Boulevard.
Do not believe it does.
Did you attempt to obtain surveillance on that path of travel that doesn't go through 95?
Yes, we did.
And were you successful?
I don't believe we were.
Right. So they're saying, did you try to find any information on the car doing what I just showed you, and they were not able to find a damn thing. Where it went like this, down, around, up like that, and then on to Bishop Drive there. They weren't able to find anything. That's not what I was looking for. It's this. Now this one. Oh, God, what the hell's going on? Let me just rewind it slightly here. Right there.
Palouse River Drive, that's what the probable cause affidavit states.
And to your knowledge, are there other paths of travel south of Moscow besides US 95?
Yes.
And what's that other route?
I believe the one that was referenced in the affidavit goes from Palouse River Drive, which turns into Sand Road at the state line, not the Idaho-Washington state line. That road continues westbound until south of Pullman and eventually leads north into Pullman at Bishop Boulevard, if memory serves.
And does that path of travel go by Watson Carey Construction?
I do not believe it does.
What's the name of that?
Did you attempt?
Oh, yeah. Okay. No, it doesn't, though. I mean, what the hell? I don't understand what he just said. Does that pass Wasson Carey? Because that's right here. Let me listen to that again.
Well, it states that a vehicle was seen leaving the area of the crime scene, McKean Road, leaving via Walenta Drive, which heads south from that area, and then terminates on Conestoga at Palouse River Drive. That's what the probable cause affidavit states.
And to your knowledge, are there other
This is also
paths of travel south of Moscow besides US 95?
Yes.
And what's that other route?
I believe the one that was referenced in the affidavit goes from Palouse River Drive, which turns into Sand Road at the state line, not the Idaho-Washington state line. That road continues westbound until south of Pullman and eventually leads north into Pullman at Bishop Boulevard, if memory serves.
Yeah.
And does that path of travel go by Watson Carey Construction?
I do not believe it does.
Wait, what
Did
is
you
it? What
attempt
does it say?
to obtain surveillance on that path of travel that doesn't go through 95?
Yes,
Wait,
we
hold
did.
on. Hold
And
on.
were you successful?
I don't believe we were.
He said
I don't have anything further.
I think he says I believe it doesn't go by there. Hold on, let me read that. Listen to that again.
And what's that other route?
I believe the one that was referenced in the affidavit goes from Palouse River Drive, which turns into Sand Road at the state line, not the Idaho-Washington state line. That road continues westbound until south of Pullman and eventually leads north into Pullman at Bishop Boulevard, if memory serves.
And does that path of travel go by Watson Carey Construction?
I do not believe it does.
Oh, I do not believe it does. There you go. Boom. Okay, I do not believe it does. Okay, I had to listen to that again. I had to make sure. He says, I do not believe it does. And that's exactly true. It does not drive by there. That means they have a camera So what that means is they do have a camera at this new location that we just figured out was at Wasson Carey Construction, which is right there. And, you know, if you go down the street view here, you can look around. There's buildings. Who knows where a camera might be? You know, on that building there, perhaps. You know, over there. Maybe there's one on the side there. We don't really know, but they're mentioning that because I think they have information that the car goes by that video camera. Right there. That makes sense? Hello?
Did you attempt to obtain surveillance on that path of travel that doesn't go through 95?
Yes, we did.
And were you successful?
I don't believe we were.
I don't have anything further.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Taylor?
Are you testifying that Mr. Kohberger did not use Highway 95 south of Moscow on November 13th?
Gonna have to rewind it here. Yeah, Brett Payne is the guy that wrote the probable cause affidavit, Zozo, that we've gone over 1,000 times. And the other, this guy, that's him right here on the screen. The other guy is a hired gun by the defense team to be their cell data expert. You know, the where was Kohberger guy.
I'm testifying that there are various routes that a person could take south of Moscow, to include Highway 95. There are also several others.
Which one does your map depict?
I believe the map starts well south of Moscow, or more towards Genesee, and there is the line that starts there. However, I'll direct you to the paragraph at the beginning of the map that says this is a possible route of travel between the two locations.
So you're just not sure.
Possible
Yeah,
route.
Okay.
He said
That
he's
would
not
include
sure.
Highway 95
It's a
south of
possible
Moscow.
route like that.
And that would include other possible routes.
Yes, ma'am.
How many video surveillance attempts did you make to get video
You could have gone down
businesses
here
or homes
and cut
on all of
across.
those routes?
I do not recall, but it continued for some time, attempting to find additional video footage.
What did you find?
Nothing to my recollection.
Not one video depicting the car.
To my memory, though.
Good enough, thanks.
All right, let me get the context of that. Now that was the question somebody asked. Hold on.
Locations.
So you're just not sure.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. That would include then Highway 95 south of Moscow.
Yes, ma'am.
And that would include other possible routes.
Yes, ma'am.
How many video surveillance attempts did you make to get video from businesses or homes on all of those routes?
I do not recall, but it continued for some time, attempting to find additional video footage.
Oh yeah, yeah. That is true. Yeah, we have already known that. There's no video surveillance anywhere along, I think maybe after the place they just mentioned, this Wasakari construction, way up here near Moscow. But as it drove down, there's no surveillance footage at all as it's driving. And that's why it's interesting. That's why it's interesting, right? Because if it went through Genesee, like let's say it went into the town of Genesee. It didn't, though. So outside here, there's no cameras. But as it came around here, if it went through Uniontown, you would think specifically it would show up on a camera somewhere in that town, but it didn't. That's why the guess is that it came in over here, and that maybe this isn't a town that, you know, maybe there's not a surveillance footage right on that one building there. And it drove through. It makes sense to me. Yeah. Yeah, so all it was they didn't get any more footage of him as he's driving around because he went in a place where there isn't footage. Then his phone is turned back on again. So basically what the defense is going to try to do, here's what I hope is that they do have a shot at this Wasakari construction company, because that means he's on this highway heading down. And I'd like to know the time of that because there is 16 minutes of missing time. So he's driving down like that, and then the cell tower right here picks him up. Now they're going to argue, oh, well, that was just a false ping, you know, it was way over here, and instead of contacting that tower, it hit this one way over here. But apparently, look at all these other towers that I found. So I think these towers picked him up as he was moving across. He's not on video, though. Then he heads up this direction, and then he is seen on camera again at 525 right here on 1300 Johnson Avenue. And we even drove in there and saw the different cameras. Does that make sense? So that was what you were looking for. Okay. 108.
Okay, thank you.
Your Honor, to facilitate this argument on this point, I am going to hand you Defense Exhibits A and B that were submitted in our records for today. I want you to be able to look at them while I'm talking.
I think it's so funny when people say, so a PhD student in criminology is dumb enough to take his phone and drive his own car to commit a crime in this day and age? Yeah. How come anybody still has their cell phone and uses their own car? He just thought if he turned his phone off and that he was going to switch his license plates in a few days, he'd get away with it, man. The white Elantra, everybody's got one, right? There's 60,000 of them in the area.
Thank you.
As of today, there have been at least 50 federal grand jury subpoenas that have been issued in this case. Exhibits A and Exhibits
It's
B
not going to
are
fall apart,
an
Lori. It's
example
not going to fall
of
apart, Lori.
copies of grand jury subpoenas that we have received out of those more than 50. And what I didn't provide to you that goes behind that what we got with those.
He agreed to take... Look at these lunatics that show up in here. I think he agreed to take the fall because he won't be convicted. When it falls apart, everybody, the public still won't know what happened. Because Brent Kopaka's the real killer. He's a hired agent by the government. They didn't want it pinned on him, so they picked a lackey named Bryan Kohberger, picked a white Elantra out from a local shop, drove around without a front license plate, drove by the Jesus, you guys are nuts, all right?
The subpoenas include attachment A, which explains what is being subpoenaed, and then what has been produced is the responses to those subpoenas. And in some of the subpoenas, we also have the certification by the person who has produced the records in response to the subpoena. Some of them are missing. We have asked the state to produce all of the subpoenas, and their response is that they are not in possession and control of those subpoenas, and they do not intend to use the subpoenas as an exhibit, and we have not justified why we need those subpoenas, and for those reasons, they are not going to produce them. I'd like to begin by saying that as it relates to any argument that the state is not in possession and control, rather than beat the dead horse on that issue, Idaho Supreme Court came down in 2023 and made it crystal clear that anybody that's acting on behalf of as an agent of the state puts those records in the hands of the state, and they need to produce them. State versus Pendleton, 2003. The other thing is that in terms of the state arguing that they are not going to use a subpoena as an exhibit, that is not in and of itself a defense to not produce a document to us. We have a million reasons why we need to look at documents. We understand that out of the 51 terabytes.
Yeah, they want to see every single freaking document. You know, it's just a delay tactic. Every single document. Yes, we saw that Bryan Kohberger ate a packet of juicy fruit. Now, if we can get a copy of the written instructions on the back of the juicy fruit label, we'd love to see that too. It might even say that you pull out a piece of gum, unwrap the damn thing, and put it in your mouth and chew it for a while. And after you lose the flavor of the juicy fruit gum, you would obviously take it out of your mouth. And if you'd like to have another piece of juicy fruit gum, you would pick another piece of gum out of the packet, unwrap it, as a single solitary man acting alone, eating it.
Terabytes that have been produced, that not all of that is evidence that's going to be coming before the court or the jury, but it doesn't mean that they aren't material or exculpatory. The subpoenas, based on reviewing the records, are in the hands of basically three agents. There is an FBI forensic agent by the name of forensic accountant, Michael Douglas. There's a special agent, Travis Shirley, and there is another agent, Mary Tyndall. These are the three agents that are receiving the subpoenas, reaching out to the providers that they're serving and asking for the documents. For the court to understand why we need these documents, I want to tell you what we're doing with discovery and timelines. There are more than 100 search warrants in this case. There are more than 50 grand jury subpoenas in this case. You've heard all kinds of information about the probable cause affidavit and the timing of that. Timing in this case for the defense is everything. So we are creating timelines that put in the dates of affidavits of warrants, the information that's received, and the date that it's produced. With subpoenas, when we don't get a copy of the subpoena and all we get is the warrant or is the subpoena return, we don't know the scope of what the state has asked for. We don't know the date that the subpoena was served. And in some of them, we don't know that there is a certified return. So we can't take
or why certain things were being looked at before Mr. Kohberger's arrest or well into late in the year in 2023 related to the victims, and try to piece together, is that something that the state is still seeking because they're pursuing the alternate suspects that exist in this case? There's so many things that we're trying to understand. So what we're asking you to do is enter an order compelling them to produce the subpoenas. You see that they had at least 2 in their possession that they possess, and it will clarify it for us. And we will be able to create our timeline and put all of these things together and know when and why the state was doing these things. And just to add one other component, you know, you're hearing about cell phone records and cell phone records today being produced on warrants. Well, there were
state knew this when. That gives us an answer on whether or not the suppression issue includes a truthful statement in the affidavit. And if I'm not making sense, I want you to tell me to clarify that. But we need to know the timeline of all of the evidence in this case and when the state knew what it knew.
Who cares when it knew what it knew?
Why certain things were being looked at before Mr. Kohberger's arrest or well into late in the year in 2023.
The DNA of Bryan Kohberger matched the DNA on the knife sheath. Therefore, it is Bryan Kohberger's DNA on a knife sheath. Oh, God. I mean, look at what they're trying to do here, you guys.
Related to the victims and try to piece together, is that something that the state is still seeking because they're pursuing the alternate suspects that exist in this case? There's so many
I need a shot of tequila.
things that we're trying to understand. So what we're asking you to do is enter an order compelling them to produce the subpoenas. You see that they had at least 2 in their possession that they possess, and it will clarify it for us. And we will be able to create our timeline and put all of these things together and know when and why the state was doing these things. And just to add one other component.
I don't know what that means, rah-rah. You have to explain that again. Who's he?
You know, you're hearing about cell phone records and cell phone records today being produced on warrants. Well, there were several sets of cell phone records that were produced pursuant to a grand jury subpoena. Okay. Still not clear to us why warrant versus subpoena, and they're different providers. Okay. And some of it's for phone numbers that we have to figure out who those phone numbers are. But all of this information is critical and material for us to be able to do the case, to do our work in this case. So I would ask that you enter an order to compel, and that way the state has the ability to take that to the FBI agents and say,
does anybody think this case is happening anytime, I mean, even remotely soon, like anytime even next year, based on the way this defense is doing this? I mean, remember Chase Merritt in the, was it the McStay case? I mean, just a kind of a simple-ish kind of, you know, I mean, not really simple, but he killed the McStay family. It took 4 years for that to go to trial. I mean, just an absolute, you know, it wasn't even that complex. It was obvious, you know, like he wrote checks to himself from Joseph McStay's checking account. You know, his spigot of cash was turned off by the wife, etc., and he killed the entire family. And he buried them out in the Mojave Desert. That's the case where we found the tire tracks that led to each grave, and that they were formed in mud and then turned in the tip, and they were like, hey, we verified your information. Thank you.
The court has entered an order. We've got to produce the subpoenas, and we'll get the subpoenas. And to the extent that the state may stand up and say, you know, we've got this 2E demands, we've got to deal with 2E, I just want to make it really clear for the court that 2E is not an obstacle. 2E is a hoop to jump through. The code related to 28 CFR 16.21 specifically states that the purpose of 2E is not to prevent federal agents from giving states discovery in a criminal case. The purpose of 2E is because these federal departments want to know when certain records are leaving their files. Understandable, but it's not meant to keep us from getting records that we need in this case.
Thank you. Response?
Mr. Jeff. Well, simply put, we can't give over what we don't have. And we do not have the majority of these subpoenas. What we do have, we've turned over. I reached out to the U.S. Attorney's Office. They advised they're not going to provide.
What? Why?
Because they don't provide subpoenas. You know, just like most grand jury material, it's sealed and not typically provided.
Not typically.
Not provided.
But even
Don't
with the
forget to
TUI
type
letter
something in,
that we
everybody.
give it,
It's frozen again.
they wouldn't follow that.
We have not. I'm not sure. But beyond that, though, even if they were to provide it, I still don't understand how this moves the needle one way or the other. You can tell, I've detailed, there's 71 federal grand jury subpoenas. And in my response, I've detailed exactly what they were for and what records were received so that you can get the scope of what was requested from the actual records. The piece of paper that was given over saying, give us these records, is all they're asking for. But they have the records. They have the important part of this.
So they have the timing based on the subpoenas
Off of
that
the
you
records.
provided to the defense.
Off of the records provided. You can tell this.
All right, guys, look at we got 143 votes up there, and that means that 42 trolls are watching the show right now. Isn't that embarrassing for them? That they sit around, God, I'm so tired. Wake me up, though, if he goes live. Okay. Oh, he's live? Okay, let me get on there. Great. What did he say this time? Let me write it down.
The scope, as well as what they're for. And I've detailed exactly what they were for in the scope in my response.
Judge, I wouldn't be wasting the court's time asking for this if the questions were answered based on the state's response to our request for discovery. Timing is critical on when a subpoena is served, what was the scope, then we can look at the documents to see if they're actually responsive to the scope. And knowing the timing of when that was served versus when it's produced to us is different. And again, I mentioned some of these things are pre-arrest of Mr. Kohberger, and some of it is in the middle, and some of it is, frankly, months after the fact, if not a year after the fact, where they're looking for things related to the victims. And
Can I ask a question? Because Ms. Jennings just said that that the dates, well, all the subpoenas that were provided to you, 71 subpoenas, and each one of those have the scope of what the request was in the subpoena, and that it would be dated.
that's not true.
That's
not true. No. There are all kinds of different records and different methods that the people that were the businesses and the people that were asked to produce the records produce them in different form. I do not know when they received the subpoena, the timing of it, and I do not know for all of these what was the scope of what was asked for versus what was produced. I do know what's produced, but I don't know the timing. And the answer of the date discovery provided, which is in Exhibit 1, that the date that a discovery is provided to us doesn't answer the first two questions that I have, which is the timing of when they asked for it and the scope that was stated in the subpoena of what they asked for. Some companies were asked probably for a certain number of months, and they didn't have records that were responsive to those number of months, right? Because when the state's doing this investigation, they're not necessarily knowing exactly what records exist. So being able to be specific is important. And I want to touch on this issue of it. It's not in their possession. I get that. But you have complete control over what evidence is going to be coming into this case with your orders. You make it crystal clear. Produce it, or it's not coming in. That's the first level of sanction. And then we can just get going from there. Something that's destroyed, if you can't produce that, there's going to be a spoliation instruction. Something that we keep repeatedly asking for.
Right,
It gets past
Kohberger's got
time,
a
we're going to knock
Hitler
the death
mustache
note
over here. What's going on?
You have control
What's he got
to
up
get
there?
these issues that we are
What is
struggling
this right
with
here?
fixed by saying, this is my order,
What is
produce
that
it,
thing?
or there's going to be a sanction.
You may be overestimating my power.
I think you're
control
underestimating your power.
Well, I have a good sense of where my power starts and ends. So
Is that a microphone or what? What is this thing?
I don't know. I mean, there's so much
Maybe it's a
discovery
mic.
that has been
Yeah.
shared. Are all of these 71 subpoenas, have they been provided to me at this point? Because I don't think I've seen them.
They went through a federal grand jury. So this is, we haven't seen anything in terms of grand jury testimony transcripts. What I have surmised based on my federal practice, I spent about 50% of my time in federal court, is that they've used a federal grand jury as an investigative tool because the FBI is partnering with them. That makes complete sense. These subpoenas are in the hands of the three agents that I gave you the names of.
No,
They
it's a
haven't
mic.
come
It's a
through you.
microphone.
they're in the hands of the agents. And so it's a matter of them just gathering the records that those agents have in their possession and providing to us, and it helps us create this timeline in a case where discovery is being given to us as if we're living in a snow globe and it's just swirling around us and we're constantly having to put it together. So, you've asked us several times, what can I do to help you guys get your work done? This is one of those things. Let us see the subpoenas so we can overlay this in our timeline.
But you just want the subpoenas. You don't necessarily are going to
this is
get
going to take forever.
the response.
We have the responses. We have the records. But what the records don't tell us is what was in the subpoena. It's like a warrant return. What is a warrant based on? It's based on an affidavit.
So this is what you want, paper that says,
And
this is what we want.
the Exhibit A that's attached to that, which I didn't give you a copy of Exhibit A, but Exhibit A is attached to each one of those, and then it specifies to the company, you're looking for phone numbers that are this, and this for these dates. You're
It doesn't
looking
have the date on that
in
when it was served?
those subpoenas tell us, we know when they are served because it comes back with a date on it. And then,
Right.
and then the attachment A has the scope of what they've asked for. What we've gotten is the documents without, it's like not having the affidavit to the warrant return.
Okay. I think I understand that. And I'm going to go back to Ms. Jennings and just clarify. What have they been given already?
They have been given records in response to all 71 of those federal grand jury
Do they
subpoenas.
have dated on there? Because that's
Many of them do. You can see that from the description of the conflicts that I provided
Yeah.
before. I can't say that all of them do, but many of them do.
well, that's
They're
very
right.
important apparently for the defense, as Ms. Mathis said that timing is everything here. So I think that's what they're really after. That's one of the things they're after is just the time frame.
We can seek to inquire as to, because what I keep hearing is they need to know the date that these various companies received the subpoena. We can still inquire. It's provided on a lot of these,
Right.
but on the ones we're missing, we can attempt to inquire and find out the date that it was served, and we can still do that without providing the piece of paper.
Well, besides the timing, what's
Where's that
the
line?
relevance to this this scope that was requested? Yeah,
What's the relevance? But
Yeah.
we're not relying on any of these.
I know. I don't think you're. What do you think they think is relevant?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Mr. Thompson, so what is the relevance? But aside with the timing, okay, and the scope.
Judge, I'm not going to give you the specific date right now in open court on one of the subpoenas, but they used a subpoena to get one of the most critical pieces
Wow.
of evidence in this case.
That's the best
And
audio
they know
of
that.
the night.
Okay.
And they are going to use that.
And what
That's something that I don't know.
and what is that critical piece of information, if you don't mind?
Hold on.
No, I mean, you probably
I didn't-
you do know of it. It's in the probable cause affidavit.
Okay.
Oh,
Thank you.
DNA, the
All right,
DNA.
Ms. Jennings,
What I can tell you is that for the majority of the stuff, we did state search warrants, and we've received many of these records that way.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Enough with that. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Maybe it's a time to. Well, let's see. Where you still have your argument. How long do you think?
Your Honor, my intention
Can I ask one
is
question, everybody?
to talk about the law that governs discovery requests and ask you to compel
How
certain
in the hell did this guy ever become a judge with his temperament? He just seems so unsure and just kind of...
things. I'm going to go through our fourth request. I'm going to tell you a few things that we have, and I'm going to tell you why you ought to order that the state give us the rest of it, how it's material to us, and how it's in the possession of control of the state. I'm going to do the same thing. But I would say I'm going to talk 15 minutes maybe.
Okay. Great. Go ahead.
Thank you. Your Honor, again, where I want to start is with Idaho Criminal Rule 16 that governs discovery. 16A directs which things are mandatory disclosures from the state. Those are things I don't even have to ask for. And those are items that the state has possession and control over that would tend to negate guilt or reduce punishment. 16B is the portion of the rule that governs when I request items in the course of my preparation of the case. And I would have the court keep in mind 16A and the prosecutor's responsibilities and Idaho Criminal Rule 16B and the discovery requests that we've made and what we have not received. We've asked for documents, we've asked for reports, we've asked for qualifications and summaries from experts, and we've asked for media that's been gathered in the case. The court can order other things that we ask for based on the need of the case. I would remind the court of the case that Ms. NASA just talked to the court about, State versus Pendleton. I know the court's familiar with this. This is a good case because it's recent and because it takes the time to define what's material and what's within the possession and control of the state. We need to think about our motion to compel in the order we are requesting from you in the context of what's in the possession and control of the state. Your Honor, the State versus Pendleton case says that any law enforcement, and this includes the prosecutor's office, it includes their staff, it includes any law enforcement that worked with them on the case. In this case, you're looking at Moscow Police Department, Idaho State Police Department, Idaho State Police Forensics Lab, and FBI agents, to name a few. So what those entities have and have developed are within the possession and control of the prosecutor. So with that backdrop, I want to run through our specific requests and talk about what we need. You've heard testimony, and so I think you know.
Thank you, M. Jordan Jarding.
Why these things are material, but let's go over it again. Starting with the fourth motion to compel. Ms. Massoff went over 1A, the grand jury subpoenas. I'm going to leave that argument alone. She did a fabulous job with that. When we're looking at 2A, this all comes from the defendant's 11th supplemental request for discovery. 2A is the video on King Street. Your Honor, we began asking for that a long time ago. We have it in full, so we don't have to talk about that. We received that full for all of the hours and days in question with both audio and video on 510. So we can mark 2A, item 219, off of our list.
219.
219.
I've gone through pages and pages and pages, so I think I really appreciate you being very specific about, what you have now and what you will still.
Okay, good, because it's the only way to keep track of it.
Yeah, well, same here. Thank you.
You're welcome. Your Honor, item 2B in our fourth motion to compel is item 224. That's the cast viz log. And this one is rough. The court heard last week Detective Mowry say, I don't have any of those, except I found these other items that we'll give you now, which were not Mowry's cast viz logs. The hard part for us about this one, Judge, and I have to make a record, I think you can order them to double check, and I'm going to ask you to order them to double check, but the hard part of this for me is that on January 9th, we asked for these cast viz logs. And the response from the state was cast viz does not produce logs. And that's just not true. It does. It's capable. It produces logs. You've heard that in the testimony. Then we filed our motion to compel and explained we have an expert. We know it produces logs. We're going to bring them. And the response was the working files were not saved. We received that response on April 23rd, 2024. And then on May 10th, we got a little bit more explanation about default settings were used and optional session files were not uploaded. This is really, really difficult because of the varying answers that we've received. The court's heard testimony from Mr. Ray about how important these logs are to know what was done. This is really challenging. We can't recreate what Detective Mowry, who testified before the grand jury, did, unless the court orders that we get the tower list he used and we have the cast viz program. And quite frankly, that's what we want. We need to see how this work was done. This is important work. I'll tell you the other thing that's really troubling and frustrating, aside from the other files that we received in preparation for motion to compel, is these screenshots that we got for the first time last week when we're on a motion to compel and have a witness report.
Rambling on
we didn't
for
have those
hours
screenshots
and
that
hours.
Detective Mowry had created. The only thing we had was Exhibit 48 that was given to the grand jury, which is a video.
Because people were so tired of listening to her.
So this
They
is
just said
really
the hell with
problematic
it.
to be told these varying
Let's
things
vote him not guilty.
and then have something else produced on the day of testimony. Your Honor, we are going to request that the court order that we have the tower list used by Detective Mowry and access to the cast viz program, so our expert, Mr. Cy Ray, can go through and see what Detective Mowry did. That it's imperative that we be allowed to do that. That's the only way to recreate what Detective Mowry did.
It seems to me he did acknowledge that he just went back and provided this a day or 2 days before he testified that he found this additional information. So I'm thinking that the state got that information and have provided that to you. Now, we also heard a lot of the quotes missing pieces today, which I'm guessing that FBI, Mr. Valance and Detective Mowry are going to go back through that and see if there's something else. At this point, I'm assuming that some things may have fallen through the cracks.
I'm just hoping this guy is doing the ultra open to the defense, sort of prior to the trial, letting them have wide leeway and, they can do this and that, and he's just letting them do it. And then eventually we'll start tightening it up, and hopefully he even appears different. Because, man, the way he appears here, it just seems like he's just so wishy-washy. Just, I don't know, man.
I mean, it is very complicated. There was a lot going on. We have some time before a trial. I just hope that everybody goes through their computers or their files or whatever they're going through so that it's complete. So what I've been watching over the last 2 months is that there have been supplemental responses to the defense. So things were coming in. They were waiting for information to come in so that they could provide that to you. So that's why I don't want to go backwards either. I just want to make sure that we are addressing what you don't have and what actually you're entitled to. So that's the tower list. I mean, I don't know anything about tower list, so I'm learning about that. I don't know that Detective Mowry addressed that, unless I missed that.
Your Honor, I believe he testified last week that he used the tower list that was contained in the AT&T record that he received. You heard today that that doesn't exist. And you heard today that the tower list was something different that he used. And that tower list had once that was entered, there was a selection on the program to do tower density as well.
Like I said, it's confusing.
It is. It definitely is.
We'll keep going.
Okay, thank you.
You want the tower list?
Yes, I think I'm getting there. But I definitely want that. I want the one that Mowry used to do his CAS Viz work back in May of last year. That's the one I really want right now, at least at this juncture in the documents right now. Right. I do want to clear up, though, when we talk about what Detective Mowry found last week when he was preparing to testify, those are emails between him and Nick Valance. Those are JSON files from Nick Valance to Detective Mowry. None of those things that he found, other than screenshots, like the exhibit that you have of his map with the different sized towers depicted, other than those screenshots, the other things he had came from Nick Valance. Those were not his logs that he found. Those were not his towers that he found. Just to be sure that those are still missing to the extent they exist. And we can't recreate what he did without the list and program. Moving on.
Thank you.
Moving on then, Your Honor, is item 226. That's called the Hemisphere Program, also known as a Timing Advance Report. Your Honor, this is one of the troubling areas again. The first response was that the records do not exist. There were letters exchanged between the state and us asking for more information.
Mandy?
In one of the letters from the prosecutor, we were told that this program was not used in Bryan Kohberger's case. And then we filed a motion to compel, and we were told that the state was not in possession of the timing records. And then the next supplemental response in May of this year, just a couple of weeks ago, was to tell us that there's some new certified records from AT&T that we're going to get. I don't know what those are. I can tell you that.
What are you referring to, Misbehaving?
These timing advance reports were asked for from AT&T, from Verizon, from T-Mobile, and another cell phone company in both of the early AT&T warrants. We called them the 48-hour and then the extended warrants back on December 23rd, 2022. We don't have those. So I just want to make a record that I need to know what happens. Moving on then to 228, item 228. That was trying to understand what was relied upon for the second AT&T warrant. And we heard quite a bit today from Detective Payne about what he relied on for that second warrant. And that had to do with what was produced and analyzed in the first warrant. However, we asked for some emails and some communications. We know about some text messaging that we've received.
See, here's the thing. When I listen to Ann Taylor, like everything she's saying, I just don't even believe it. I'm just like, she's just rambling on, bitching and complaining, trying to find some element to be able to use at some sort of like a mistrial or some shit like that. Like she doesn't even, I just listen to it and it's just garbage. The FBI, they don't goof around out there and just sort of like, yeah, well, we're just kind of. So like, you're so interested, Mandy, what she's saying, but what she's saying is just garbage. The prosecution has handed them everything that they've had so far. I don't know, man. I think it's astounding that people literally think that Ann Taylor is above board and just so great. She's just so honest and just, perfect. It sucks,
Received, but we don't have written correspondence, email correspondence, exchanging information, just the text messaging. So we want all of the email communication between Payne and Valance. Well, between anybody from Moscow PD and anybody from the FBI, really.
Yeah, you're talking about the DNA then, right? See, here's the thing about the DNA, everybody. It doesn't matter how the tip came in that led to them testing Bryan Kohberger's DNA. Now, you guys want to make a big deal about the part about, well, you know, they used the backdoor method to the system, and that's how they get. What matters is that his DNA matched 100%. Like it is his DNA on the knife sheath. That's what matters. And if a psychic had came forward, people go, that's a terrible analogy. No, it's a perfect analogy. If a psychic had came forward and mentioned Bryan Kohberger, and they looked at Bryan Kohberger and they go, wow, he does have a wide Elantra. He drove back there. Let's check his trash. And they looked through his trash, and my God, it matched. What would the defense say? How dare you use a psychic? Oh my God. I mean, if it was just miraculously a psychic got that one, right? Or let's say an informant. Oh my God, you're paying people to... An informant had given the tip and it led to Bryan Kohberger? What difference does it make? All that matters is the person they ended up finding matched the DNA on the knife sheath. The tip and where it came from is irrelevant to the case. No, it could not have been the 80s kid. But great, could have been cross-contempt. With what? They already had the DNA from the get-go. That's how they found Bryan Kohberger. The 80s kid, you're absolutely incorrect there.
Your Honor, item 229 is the MAID data.
There's Alan McMahon. He shows up again.
We received a disclosure, and I think we got that on either 510 or 517. And I'm going to need some time to have an expert help me out with that. I don't know if that's complete. I also know that in the fifth motion to compel, there is information we've asked for from Babel. That was a program.
Oh, I get it now. Well, thanks, the 80s kid. I get it now. The long A. But great. Right? That one. I should have picked up on that. It could have been cross-contaminated. Yeah, but people actually say that out there, though. That's the thing. They say weird shit like that. I mean, wow. What horrible odds. Think about Brent Kopacka, man. Did he own a white Elantra, by the way? Did he drive around in another white Elantra, steal Bryan Kohberger's car, commit the murders, but while he was driving the car, touch the steering wheel, thus the K-bar knife sheath, then commit the murders, leave the knife sheath there, thinking I might have left touch DNA of Kohberger on there, because I want to pin it on somebody else, and he gets in the car, drives away. Ho! Yeah, the DNA in this case locks in everything. If the defense team cannot get the DNA thrown out, it's over. Okay? It's over. And even without the DNA, it's a good case. But the DNA by itself absolutely locks this case in. It means the white Elantra doing its 4 loops was his car. It means that the vehicle, when it was driving away at 448, I think it was, away south of Moscow, that's his car. When it pinged the tower, it came around, that's his car coming back in at 525 and going home. He wasn't over looking at stars at a park. It was his white Elantra missing his front license plate. Not only that, his psychological profile matches. Then he drives home for the holidays with his dad in the car, gets pulled over twice, goes home, cleans his car multiple times. He's being watched. Then they collect the trash. They only find his father's trash. And you know why? Because when they finally went in to arrest him, once they found out the father of the killer, or the person who left the DNA on the knife sheath, lives at that house, they realize, okay, well, they made an arrest now. So they go in and they make the arrest. They got an arrest warrant because of that information. And they find him in there, and he's separating the trash out of the garbage can of his own DNA and putting it into the neighbor's garbage can. Because that's what we all do. On a nightly basis. I don't know about you, but I sit around in my kitchen and I separate my trash from my wife's trash and put it in my neighbor's garbage can. Because you just never know when somebody might come sneaking around to take that. Oh, or could he have been just paranoid about that? You just never know.
That was used to help decipher some of the MAID data, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, but that one's yet to come. So I'm going to ask the court for an order compelling the state to give me all the MAID data. They may have already complied, though. Their intent to comply, I can tell you that.
What does that stand for again?
Mobile advertiser. Let's see, I've got it in here.
Okay, I'm glad.
Identification number. Mobile advertiser identification.
I mean, I remember saying at the beginning that the DNA didn't even matter that much to me, but the DNA does. It is really important. I mean, obviously, a knife sheath that was left in a 12-minute window. How do you know, Gray? How do you know they could have put the knife sheath there later, you bastard? And then the white launcher was to make it look like it was him. God, you guys are nuts. Crazy people.
Identification number.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Judge, we are now talking about item 242, the cast report. The history of this is we came to the court asking for the cast report, knowing it was relied upon last year, and the court ordered that we receive it. We received one that was stamped draft all over it. You've heard testimony about that today from Mr. Ray, and it's not a final report, and we knew that when we got it. We asked for that. We asked for the analysis behind that, and we haven't received that. We were told on February 23rd of this year that the state will provide this by March 31st. Well, March 31st came and went, and we did not get it. So on April 23rd, the state said we still don't have it. And then on May the 10th, the state responded to this request and said that because we provided additional information, Mr. Kohberger's alibi, they need more time to do work on this cast report, and they'll get it to us later. Your Honor, I think you ought to order that we get the cast report, and I think you ought to order that we get everything that went into developing this, and we get the analysis that they made from that.
Bryan Kohberger.
This is particularly troubling. Their response, you told us something, so now we have to go reconfigure the cast report. Let me tell you why that's troubling. Item 243 is our request. Give us a list of everything Nick Valance relied on when drafting his cast report.
The man with
And
the
we were
largest
told Nick
beetle
Valance
on his
relied on
nose
call
that
detail
you've
records from
ever
AT&T.
seen.
Nick Valance relied upon tower records.
It's a
And he
huge
relied upon
cockroach, if you ask me.
the drive test data.
Hanging out
Nowhere
on the
in there
right
does
side
it
of
say,
his nose all
if
night
you
long.
tell us anything about the case, we need that to rely on.
Will he grab it
These
and
are
eat
records
it?
that exist. These are
We
tower
don't
lists
know.
that exist. They go into a program. You do drive testing to understand how the device interacts with towers, and you create a report. So we're asking the court to order that we get the cast draft report, we get the full list of everything he relied upon, and we get the analysis of what does this mean.
So another clarifying question, maybe. So I listened to the testimony today, and that it sounded like a cast report was provided, but maybe it wasn't complete. Is what Mr. Ray suggested. But I think that I'm guessing you're assuming that the state provided what they had, but it maybe they're still working on it. I don't know. But didn't you get
She does try to put out. She actually says that, are they covering up for something? She says that in this hearing at some point. I might have just missed it because I listened to it earlier today, and now I'm just reading comments.
initially what they had as they characterized as the cast report? So what do you say? I mean, we have problems with language, I think, especially when we're in this area, technology. And so we might be just going back and forth like this without really understanding.
No, they keep the same judge.
What we're asking for or what we're providing.
Let me see if I can clear that up. The testimony today, when we had Detective Payne on the stand, when we talked about what did you rely on to get the second AT&T warrant, he said that there was something that Nick Valance produced and that the prosecutor had it,
Good
and he
night,
thought it was a
Linda
cast
Howell.
draft. And then you heard from Mr. Ray, who said, I've seen the cast draft report, and maybe it's something different that Detective Payne looked at. It wasn't this big long cast draft. The cast draft report, and I'm calling it draft because it's stamped draft. I knew it wasn't final when I received it. We got that because you ordered that the state give that to us last July. So I had this draft.
It's
I knew
the
it wasn't
nail in the
final.
coffin.
Ms. Jennings knew it wasn't final. We've talked about it. We believed that we were going to get the final report by March 31st. We don't have that yet. It's the final report that we need. You also heard from Mr. Ray talking about the things that are mistakes in the CAS draft report. These reports go through a peer review process, and they can look a little different when they come back out on the other side. Usually not vastly different, but they can. They go through their process. It's that final product that I need that. I need to know everything they relied on to do their work.
Hey, by the way, everybody put out the positive vibes for Lisa Wilkerson again. We talked about it earlier today. She sent me a email that said she has, I mean, she's been there forever. She's got the star badge, you know, been around. But she said that she has stage 4 ovarian cancer, you know, and man, that's brutal. But you know, she's a fighter, and let's see, you know, let's give her the positive vibes out there. Put the little, you know, if you can on your spare time, just send out some prayers or positive vibes for Lisa Wilkerson. She's been around for a long time. She sent me an email. And I feel bad. All right. Sorry for the downer comment, but I wanted to put that in there.
I need to know what this draft report is going to look like. The court should know that when we get to trial, likely Agent Balance is going to come in and talk about his CAS draft report. He's going to be an expert in the field and talk about what he found and why he found and what he relied on to do that. I'm going to come in with an expert that's going to explain what his work did. Now, if the work aligns and Nicholas Balance and our expert aligns, well, that's just going to be shorter. But right now, it's definitely not looking like that. It looks like they're going to have their side, and we're going to be talking about what the data shows. So what I want is the final report that we were told would be available by March 31st. I need time to work on it.
Sure.
What I want is a full list of what was used to create that report, what was relied on. I have to be able to see if I can recreate that. I have to see what was right with it and what was wrong with it. So I don't have those two things, right?
Is it possible that it's just not completed?
It is possible.
A final report?
It is possible, but I need you to order that come to me. And I don't think Ms. Jennings doesn't want to give it to me. But if you order that I get it, then I'm going to get it a lot sooner, I think. I'm not saying that Ms. Jennings is sitting holding it behind her back. I'm saying I don't now know what's going on. The FBI told her it was going to be in by March 31st. We hit our deadline to disclose our alibi. And all of a sudden now they need to redo something in the report, which shocks me because of the things they said that they relied on were things that already existed. So now I really need to know what they're relying on to do this report, and I really need to see the analysis, and I really need to see the final report.
Sure.
I have to react to it.
Since we're talking about this, Ms. Jennings, do you want to just respond to that? Whether or not this is still a work in progress, or what's going on?
Right, Your Honor. As I know right now, that report is not in its final form, and it has gone through a peer review process. My understanding is it's still in that. I have been told that yes, it's not a matter of redoing anything, but as they receive additional information, they just want to double check their work. They want to make sure that when they get the final report, it's accurate. So we are still waiting for that final report to ensure that it's accurate. And as soon as we receive it,
I'm sorry. You have a time frame for that? I told you when they expect to be finished.
I don't have a final time frame. They originally told us it was projected to be completed by June next month. So I'm hoping to get it within the next month.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. Sometimes it's easier just to sort of a particular issue at the same time.
So the hot ones, it might be, Your Honor.
Yes.
Your Honor, I do think we have the regional tower list now, so I think we're good with that. On item number 244 and 245, we have those documents now, so we're good there. Moving then to item 248. This is the drive test data, the mapping data. The court heard pretty extensively that we've received this in two places. We received some early on, and then we received a lot more recently, but it appears to still be missing some. Asking the court just to order that we receive the entirety of all drive test data that was conducted by Agent Balance or anybody from the FBI. 249 is anything that exists after January 6th of 2023 for the drive test data. That's number 249. And so I would ask the court to order that to the extent that it exists. Would ask that it be ordered to be produced. Item 250 is the training and certification records for Nick Balance and Sean Kennedy relating specifically to the use of the Gladiator or the GAR. That's the item used to conduct these drive tests. Your Honor, I think that we gave the court a transcript of testimony of Nick Balance that occurred within the last year. And that transcript had highlighting on it, so the court didn't have to read the whole thing. But to look at how many times the training and experience was relied upon by this expert, and that expert's Nick Valance. And if he's going to be a testifying expert, the discovery rules allow for us to have their training. We asked for it specific to this gladiator because we know that's going to be a big part of his testimony. So we're asking the court to order that we receive his training and certification records relating to the GAR product. Similarly, now we'll talk about the GAR unit itself and its calibration records or its certificates that it's in compliance. The court just heard the testimony from Mr. Ray about how important that is, that often they get tired, things go wrong with them, and they get restored to service. We do have 2 certificates.
Oh, he ate
but what we need is what
Oh.
Mr. Ray called the bookends, so we need the other side. We know that it came in non-compliant and that it was restored and went back out. We don't know what happened after it was used, and we don't know the next bit of calibration that it went through. We don't know how it checked out. So we need the full copy, the bookend copy of the calibration reports.
This is still in 250.
That one is 250, yes. Sorry, Judge, I think that might have been in 251. That wasn't 251. 250 is the training records for the agents, and 251 is for the calibration records for the instrument. I apologize for that. 258 is a request for all information, all data, including all expert reports that the state has relied upon in developing the affidavits in support of all warrants.
That's like a big one.
It's a big one, and the state responded with an answer saying these are the things that have been relied on. I'll tell you what my concern is, that there are things maybe in computer files, things on somebody's desk that haven't been turned over yet. So I think the court ought to order that the state make sure they've given us everything that was relied on for every single one of the warrants. Ms. Massa indicated to the court, and I know that other members, I think Mr. Logston has indicated that we're going to have motions to suppress. And so we want to make sure that we have all of the information. Possibly it would answer questions so we don't have to have this meeting. But
So we don't have to what?
have quite as many motions to suppress.
Okay, thank you.
That's not a promise.
I understand.
All right, Judge, let's talk about the 5th motion to compel. That completed the board. The 5th motion to compel, we are not going to talk about the 15th request for discovery until this afternoon. So my comments will relate to the supplemental request for discovery, number 12, number 13, and number 14.
12, 13, 14.
Yes. In request number 259, number 260, 261, 262, and 265.
Who in the hell would want to be a judge on this case? My God.
The state has let us know that these are coming. They responded on May 10th and said these are coming. They don't have a problem. So we're asking the court to order them to be disclosed to us. I think these are some that aren't going to be available for a while, but I think the court ought to order it. The state doesn't seem to have an objection to us having them. The order will mean we don't have to come back if something doesn't get through to us.
Okay, can you give me those numbers again, please?
Yes, I can. It's number 259, number 260, number 261, 262, and 265.
Thank you.
Yeah, grand jury got it right. They
Your
know
Honor,
exactly
289 related to.
You know, it's funny. I bet the people on the grand jury watch these hearings and just go, "Oh, Jesus, this is ridiculous," because they saw all the information that makes it really obvious.
Communications between Detective Payne and the WSU officer talking about wide launchers. I believe that that's been covered. Payne testified today that we have the instant messages and there was only a phone call and that was it. So to the extent that that's the very end of it, then we're fine. And so I think we are on that one. Item number 299 is called a tips lead sheet. And that's something that's referenced during the course of in the discovery. We were asked for an example that was sent to the state. I'm just going to ask the court to order that be disclosed to us. Number 300 relates to
What happened?
3 separate AV files, and I'm going to ask the court just to order that they all be given to us. We may have them all, but I'm going to ask that the court just order that just to be sure that we have them. Well, Your Honor, I take that back. I spoke with Ms. Jennings, and I know there's one area. I'm not going to talk about the area, but I know there's still one area that we don't have, so I'm going to ask the court to order that all emails, notes, and communications be produced to us. Your Honor, the next item is the CAST certification and training for Nick Valance. And for many of the same reasons that we asked for that for the Gladiator, we need to have his training records. He's going to come in as an expert. The discovery rules cover this. You can see an example of him testifying as an expert in the transcript that I provided.
That's not covered by 250?
250 is the training related to the Gladiator specifically. This one is relating very specifically to his training for his CAST work and certification for his CAST work.
I'm sorry, what was the number for that training?
I do not think
That's 300.
that one's not 300. Let me find that one. I didn't write that number down. Give me 263. Program to save the day.
263.
And 264, I believe, relates to Sean Kennedy. Yeah. He's another FBI cast person. And I am now at Your Honor, items 274, 275, and 278 have been provided. Item 287 relates to a new expert, a blood spatter expert that the state is working with. We're told that that's going to be available in June. It doesn't seem that there's an objection. We'd ask the court to order that be provided to us once received by the state. Request 289 we have. We're now at the 13th supplemental request for discovery. And that one is 302, item 302. That's similar to several others. So I'm going to hold the argument on that for a minute. I'm going to let the court know that items 303, 304, 305 have been provided to us, except there's going to be some raw data provided to us. And to that extent, would ask the court order that we receive the raw data that those have otherwise been complied with. Items 306, 309, and 308. The response from the state has been that we've now worked through the 2-week process. That letter's been given to the FBI, and so we may get those by early June. So we ask the court to order that those be produced. I don't think the state's objecting to those. They just don't quite have them yet. 307 has been provided. Your Honor, 313, those are the Department of Transportation cameras. We heard testimony about that last week, that there was a letter preserving still shots, but not any video was available. So I think that that's been complied with to the extent that it can be complied with. 314 was the email communication, and we received that, so that's been complied with. 316 and 315, I believe, are also subject to the 2-week letter, so would ask the court order those be provided as soon as they're received. And now moving on to request 317, 322, 319, 320, 321, 323, 320, and 324. And then picking back up with 302. Those are all surveillance camera items that we've requested. We're asking the court to order Moscow Police Department, as the custodian of these things in this case, to do an inventory of what's there. You heard last week that Detective Mallory said, I don't have the videos, those aren't my responsibility. You heard today Detective Payne said, it's Mallory and FBI agents. So we take Mallory out of the equation. He says, I didn't do it, I can't tell you where these videos are. I don't know who the FBI agents are. So first, I think the court ought to order that that be disclosed to me. The second offer was that I can go to the Moscow Police Department evidence room and go through hundreds of hours, thousands of hours of videotapes, and that's just not reasonable. These are videotapes that have been collected in the course of this investigation. You heard Detective Payne say that when he looked at cameras on South 95 and the other road south of Moscow on the date in question, and in conformance with what he alleged in his affidavit of probable cause to arrest Bryan, he looked at those videos and he didn't find a car. That screams stuff that's exculpatory to me. I need to know where these videos are. They were collected. The court can see that from the reports that we put in the packet of evidence. The court knows they've been collected, but nobody can tell me where they are. And I need to have I don't know who the FBI agents are. So first, I think the court ought to order that that be disclosed to me. The second offer was that I can go to the Moscow Police Department evidence room and go through hundreds of hours, thousands of hours of videotapes, and that's just not reasonable. These are videotapes that have been collected in the course of this investigation. You heard Detective Payne say that when he looked at cameras on South 95 and the other road south of Moscow on the date in question, and in conformance with what he alleged in his affidavit of probable cause to arrest Bryan, he looked at those videos and he didn't find a car. That screams stuff that's exculpatory to me. I need to know where these videos are.
Yeah, but they seem to mention that there's a vehicle seen on, where was that? At Wasankari Construction. They mentioned that specifically.
They were collected. The court can see that from the reports that we put in the packet of evidence. The court knows they've been collected, but nobody can tell me where they are. And I need help. I don't physically have time to go watch thousands of hours in Moscow Police Department and be efficient with the case. But if that's what I have to do.
Yeah, but you could easily pick out wouldn't you want to look at the freaking video in the time frame that matters? They don't have thousands of hours of relevant surveillance footage. They've probably got literally, 2 hours at the most of actually relevant surveillance footage. If that, like you got to look at the hours between the camera footage, between the hours of, I would say specifically in Moscow from 3:15 or 3 o'clock in the morning, let's say, until 4:30. That's all you got to look at. You don't need to look at some other time frame or anything. And, there's going to be a wide Elantra moving around at gas stations and different places.
I guess I need the court to tell me that's what I have to do. I think you have the ability to order that there be an accounting of all of these videos. Keep in mind, what we heard today was exculpatory.
No, it wasn't.
There has to be...
No, it wasn't. Nothing you heard today was exculpatory. What does the word exculpatory mean? It means it excludes your client. It means like, hey, this is information that it shows the opposite of guilt. No, it doesn't. Nothing was shown today that you're saying that it's possible that some missing data would be exculpatory. You can't claim it as being exculpatory until you see it, right?
Duty to categorize all of these videos and get that information to me. Go.
Hey, thank you, S. Jab Weather. Judge Juan Villaseñor wrote in his ruling that he had found 3 other rulings from judges rejecting or expressing skepticism of Sly Ray's evidence. It's junk science, really. Yeah, I totally agree. He's what he is? He's a hired gun to come in, and there's accountants that do this shit. I worked at this bank. This was at the start of the banking crisis. I worked at a bank, and I think it was like 2000. It was First Consumers National Bank in Beaverton, Oregon, and it was just so ridiculous. The CFO, sometimes he would sit there and it would be like, oh, our numbers are dropping, but he would sort of manipulate the calculation and ratio. Oh, now the chart's going up. I was the guy that had to put together the presentations, using PowerPoint and shit. It was just like, what the hell are you guys doing? These guys like this are magicians, This guy could just come in there and go, well, that could be a ping over here. And it's up to him to view something in a way that helps his client, not that it's accurate or not. He's going to twist it around to make it look like it was, exculpatory, helping their client. But the FBI hopefully will come in and completely fix that.
Find these videos that other police officers turned over to Moscow Police Department that are in relevant areas. That's just critical, and that needs to happen.
So I did look at a long list of videos that were provided to the defense that said there was nothing there, or the camera was broken, so there was some kind of inventory there. You saw that, right?
Yes.
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 Okay. So what you want now is just a complete inventory of all of the videos that they obtained.
That would be appropriate to have that, but there are specifically named videos in this 5th motion to compel that we specifically want the videos. We know they're there. We've read the police report.
Okay. If it's 317 through, 324, you're saying that those are specific.
There's a
videos that you want, that you think are in this inventory.
Well, I don't know if they're in that inventory. I don't have them. I know they were collected and given to Moscow Police Department. I want to know where they are. And we listed out in 317, in 322, 319, 320, 321, 323, and 324 different locations that say we collected these. We gave them to Moscow Police Department. That's what I need to know. Where are they?
You didn't get any of these videos of this list that you just gave me?
No, of that list I gave you, I did not There was also one that I asked to be included. I'm coming back to that number. It's 302. We did get a time frame on the day before the incident. And so I need to know where the time frame after the incident is.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge, for that. I'm close to being done. Number 325, the answer was that if there was communications, it would have been a call. So that one's fine. We're good with that one. Number 326 is Uber logs between Detective Mallory and Uber company. They've been provided to us, but I can't get into them. They're password protected. Miss Jennings and I have been trying to work that out. I think she'll continue to try to help me, but to the extent that it doesn't work, I'll need a copy that does work in some form. J has to do, or I'm sorry, 336. 336 has to do with records, and I believe that Miss Jennings has provided or is providing a police report that will indicate these records don't exist based on an interview that was done. So we don't need to do anything with that one today. And I think the rest of them, 335, 336, 337, 338, and 339, the state has indicated that we've been given everything there is and nothing else exists. This all has to do with vehicle identification, and we're talking about identifying a car in question from a video as being a 2011 to 13 Elan truck. They say we have it all. So if we have it all, that's great. I just don't want any surprises. Again, Your Honor, and we think the court should order the things as we outline. They are material to the preparation of our defense. I would remind the court that relevance is the standard of whether it gets in front of the jury, but it's a different standard when we're talking about materiality. That was talked about in the penalty.
Sorry for my bots. Keep your head warm with a freak beanie. Of course, in the summertime, that's not really the greatest thing to buy, right?
Pendleton case, and I know the court's familiar with the Pendleton case.
Now, if you're in Australia, feel free to buy one of those.
Court wrote about that in a previous order.
Yes.
So I'll leave it at that and just request that the court order these things. So
I'm at that list at the end about the identification of vehicle. You're saying that they have provided that to you, but they're telling you that's all they have.
yes, there are specific items that they say, we gave you everything that's there. The rest of these items don't exist. It has to do with cameras and camera angle.
Yeah, she's definitely somebody that you could say, you know, Ann, you look great today. What do you mean I look great today? Don't I look great every single day? I mean, last week I wore this and I wore this and I wore that and I wore that and I wore this and I wore these shoes the other day. Why didn't I look good that day? Why didn't you say I look good that day? How come you didn't say I look good that day?
And different things like that. It's spelled out in the fifth motion to compel.
Okay.
I just don't want to be surprised.
You just want to make sure that if they find something else, they provide some supplemental response.
Well, I'd be concerned if they find something else after
Right.
they said nothing else exists.
It's like $85 for a beanie? Come on. No way in hell it's $85.
Shaking their heads right now, but you never know. So, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge.
Ms. Jennings.
Thank you, Judge.
There's a lot of stuff there.
Yes, and I'll try to make this quick. I'll kind of go through each
Watch how she just comes in and destroys every single thing that Ann Taylor just said.
of these items that are still out there for discussion. But just to give you a little bit of perspective of what all has been provided to date. The state has
Well, I rest assured, both sides, that I have gone through page after page after page after page. So, yeah, I understand. I have some perspective about what's been going on and how hard both sides have been working. So,
and just to give a little context, why this isn't just so simple. To date, we've given 15,691 bait stamped pages of discovery. So for a little context, this is a 2-inch binder. It would be about 39 of these. We've given 13,758 bait stamped photographs. That's about 34 of those binders of photographs. We've given 911 AV dumps. Those are digital files. In addition to a massive hard drive, about 50 terabytes full of discovery. And that includes audio video from about 285 interviews, 15,000 video clips from approximately 79 businesses, 8,000 video clips from approximately 10 residences.
How many?
417 files.
I'm going back a little bit.
And AV dumps. Those are digital files. In addition to a massive hard drive, about 50 terabytes full of discovery. And that includes audio video from about 285 interviews, 15,000 video clips from approximately 79 businesses.
15,000 video clips from 79 businesses. That means They probably have surveillance footage that is useful from 79 different businesses, but they got a whole bunch of large time frame of clips.
8,000 video clips from approximately 10 residences.
Wow.
407.
What do you mean? How do you get 8,000 clips from 10 residences? Man, you must have got like a month. Oh, I know why they did that. Because they wanted to go back in time to see if he was surveilling the area. And I bet you they have that information. Oh, man. Oh, holy shit, man. Picture that. Did they have him on like Willanta Drive over here on various nights driving around, like, you know, all those different dry runs that he did for those 11 other times or 12 times he was in the area? Woo! Oh! How come those Kohberger freaks on that Facebook page don't talk about that very much?
17 files containing call detail records, multiple terabytes of records for 11 computer devices, 17 cell phones, multiple social media accounts, and 4 tower dumps.
Or, excuse me, Ms. Jennings,
4 tower dumps. In addition to records regarding well over 17,000 tips. We've given multiple terabytes of records in response to the 71 grand jury subpoenas, as well as the 101 search warrants that were done in this case. We have facilitated the defense viewing the physical evidence on multiple occasions, as well as facilitated additional DNA trace evidence to be examined at their request.
Watch how he almost like actively tries to help the defense here in a minute.
We've had a consistent pattern of loading up discovery and providing a hard drive to the defense on an almost weekly basis. And just to be clear, we're going to continue to do that. As we receive discovery, we review it, we load it on our hard drive, and we give it over.
Yeah, so they're still getting discovery, but they were ready to go already. The discovery that's coming in is just sort of this ancillary, you know, crap going on the side. It has nothing to do with, it's not important. They've already got this locked up by the information that they've had for a long time. And this other stuff, yeah, it'll help them and everything. And if it's, miraculously exculpatory, they'll be giving that to the defense too. But it's not going to be, because Bryan Kohberger is the killer in this case, everybody.
Now, going specifically through each of the requests, we've already dealt with in the 4th motion to compel. Item 214, we've already argued. Item 219, we've already complied with.
Yeah, they're going to keep looking, right? Because the trials and
we heard the testimony, and what we know and what the judge heard testimony for is that CASVIZ is just a software program that allows investigators to put in like the records received from a cell phone provider like AT&T into a software program, and they kind of visualize. Detective Mallory testified he got the raw data set from AT&T, used the default settings for the times in question. It produced a map. He took a screenshot of that map. We provided that screenshot. He only did this in response to our request to provide a visual for the grand jury. We've been told that optional session files were not created or saved, and that this item just simply doesn't exist. In the current version of CASVIZ, the user settings aren't automatically saved in an exported session, but instead it just returns to default settings. I asked Detective Mallory about this. He advised us that he used the...
And we've only got another 20 minutes now. If you want to help support the channel tonight, help out the earlier donation night that we struggled in, that'd be great. Thank you very much.
Default settings. It doesn't take much time or effort to redo this, which is why he didn't save those logs. That's his normal practice. He just saved the screenshots, and we've provided that. We agree. We will double check.
Well, thank you, Alex's. Made it to my first live from the UK. Love you guys. So you watch the show a lot, but maybe I need to do later shows sometimes. Because it's about 7:15 in the morning over there, right? It seems like I miss out. There's other people that do live streams at like 8 in the morning, my time, which would then be, like, I guess if I did a show before noon, it would be 8 o'clock at night over there or something, right?
We're doing that throughout all of this. To our knowledge, there are not tower documents that were relied upon, but we will double check and inquire, and if that exists, then we will turn it over. 226 has to do, well, first the request was for the AT&T Hemisphere program, and then it detailed several other things below it. And we were told they didn't use the Hemisphere program. And you're right, language is important as to exactly what's being requested. And now after a series of back and forth, They're saying that they want AT&T timing report. We have been told if that's referring to timing advance records, those records don't exist. We do have these location records, the DBOR records, and we've given those over. Now, the second part, it says that investigators recently obtained certified records from AT&T, and that'll be disclosed in upcoming discovery production. My understanding is that that's not related to the above. It's not related to Bryan Kohberger's records. It's related to other records that were done later for other folks. But we will be providing that in the next production doc. Next is 228, complete copy of all materials relied upon.
I mean, I've sped this up 140%, but it's still so easy to understand, right? So you can really save a lot of time. I mean, this is a 3-hour long, I don't know what you call a hearing, and I've got it down to 2 hours and like 6 minutes, where I deleted also the missing time too.
Corporal Payne. To our knowledge, we turned all of that over. We have given the documentation of correspondence between our cast agent, Balance, as well as with Detective Payne. And he testified today that the only other communication, they were together. So they were just relaying things verbally. And that he was...
Or is it that you saying that you complied with that, but they are still asking for it? I just want, speaking of language.
Well, I can't speak for the defense, but to our knowledge, we have provided everything that relates to the MAID data.
Okay. I just want to be clear about that.
Now, hold on, let me, that's the part.
Or is it that you saying that you complied with that, but they...
Right, like, why is he helping out, right? Like, let's waste more time here. You're saying you complied, but I want to know if the defense agrees that you complied, and then...
They are still asking for it. I just want to...
I mean,
speaking of language.
That's like going out of his way. If she didn't get it, she would have said something. You know how Ann Taylor is.
I can't speak for the defense, but to our knowledge, we have provided everything that relates to the MAID data.
Okay. I just want to be clear about that.
Yeah, that's stupid. I don't know why you did that.
If both sides agree that this is done, we don't need to keep arguing about this. But if the state is saying, well, we've complied, but they don't agree with that, then that's something I have to deal with. Ms. Taylor?
Your Honor, there's so much here. So the clarification on this is
Jesus.
they did give us MAID data.
Okay.
I've been working with our expert, and we think that all the data is there. But part 2 of it has to do with the Babel information that's coming. That's in the 5th motion to compel.
That's a great
good one to remember. Yeah.
Yes.
And so I need that to put those two together. So I think the MAID data we have, I need to reserve though and say once our experts had full time to look at the MAID data, once we get the Babel stuff as well, then we may have a problem. But they did do a disclosure. For sure they did do a disclosure. I just can't say it's all of what we were looking for quite yet.
All right. So some of these we might come back to me to say, okay, where there's something missing or everything's fine.
And I will speak with Ms. Jensen if I know.
Babel's like that language app, so I don't know if that's what I don't think that's what they're talking about.
I noticed that ahead of time too.
Okay, thank you.
243 relates to the final draft of past report. 244 is done. 248, there's still some questions about. I will say that Ms. Taylor reached out to me last week, letting me know that they believe there might be some missing pieces there. I reached out to SA Balance, asking, he was at a training all last week. I've been told he's looking into it to see.
Thanks,
if there is additional information, then of course we would produce that. That's all I know at this point. 249 is related to the above. 250 to the state belief that's been done. And 258, again, this is a very broad request. If there's something specifically that they're looking for, that would be helpful. But as far as the state's concerned, we've complied with this request. We've given you the returns for all of the 101 search warrants that were done, as well as the affidavits, which detail exactly what the investigator relied upon in order to obtain those search warrants. Again, if there is something specific that they're seeking or looking for, if they can provide that to us, then we will inquire. Now we move on to the 5th. Items 259 through, 259, 260, 261, 262, and 265.
What do you mean?
Yes, our answer is that we have inquired. We've been told that this is coming. The employee responsible for these items is out on medical leave for about 6 to 8 weeks. We still have probably another month left before she returns. And then we need time for that to be completed. But we do intend on giving this over. As we've done already, as we get it, we turn it over. Item 289, this is completed. 299, tip lead sheets. State has provided information for well over 17,000 tips in this case. We've been advised by the FBI that they believe they have provided all information related to tips. Now, I'm unsure if there are duplicates of the same information. We will inquire, but substantively, it's our understanding that they have all the information for the 17,000 tips. But yes, I will inquire and see if there's something, a tip lead sheet that can be easily provided. 300, this has, for the majority, already been provided. They already have the ISP and PD emails. I've talked to Ms. Taylor about another certain section of emails that she would like to see. I will inquire about that, and if they exist, we will turn them over. 263 and 264 have to do with CAS certification and training records. I can tell the court, we're going to comply with this. We're not at our expert discovery disclosure deadline, and we're just not at that point, but we will be. And we plan on giving this over on anything we intend to rely upon. 274, 275, 278 have all been done. 287, this is an expert analysis. We haven't received it. We are expecting to receive it sometime in the next month. As soon as we receive that, we will discover. 289 is done. And starting with 302 is when we get into all these different surveillance videos. We have provided them a list of all of the videos as they're labeled and as they're stored at MPD. Now, yes, we will do our due diligence to make sure that what we have is turned over. To date, though, and we'll continue to do that. To date, we have located a Watson Carey construction video, but the only thing we've located is one that covers from about 9 p.m. on the 12th till midnight. We'll continue to look for what they've requested, and as soon as if it's located, we will turn it over. 303 has been completed, 304 has been completed, and 305. The next series, 306, 307, 308, 309 are all part of the two-week process. As detailed in our response, we've been told by the FBI that it's going through their process, and we're hoping to hear something back about whether or not these are approved and when they're going to be provided in early June. 313 is done, 314 is done, 315 is part of, again, the two-week process, as well as 316. Again, we should know more early June. Back to videos, 317. The first thing they asked for is this US Bank video. That's been provided. Ampersand, to our knowledge, it doesn't exist. Again, we'll do our due diligence to make sure. If it's located, we'll provide it. One World Cafe does not exist. And 9 to 5 is actually US Bank, and that's been provided. Red Star Coffee, we have, and 319, 320, 321 are all ones that are still outstanding. We'll continue to try to locate those. If they exist, we'll turn them over. 324, 325, 326 have all been complied with. 334 does not exist, and there will be a supplemental report to that effect. 335, 336, 337, 338, 339, 340 have all been complied with, and that gets us to the end of the fifth.
Yeah, I think if you get, I think the DNA and the vehicle driving around are combined are more compelling than just the DNA by itself. Because if you go the DNA by itself, you could start arguing a little better. Oh, it was just, touch DNA somehow. It got on there from somebody else. But when you have the white Elantra driving around, and then also his phone pinging south just 28 minutes after it sped away at a high rate of speed, I think all of that stuff combined are way more compelling than just saying his DNA is on the knife sheath. Because if there's no evidence that his car is driving around or anything like that, then you could argue that it came from just sort of some random encounter somewhere. Like, oh, he touched somebody else touched something, and then they touched the knife sheath, but not when the car stops. A white Elantra stops for a 12-minute period in which time all of them are killed, and his DNA is on a knife sheath inside the house, and his car had no front license plate. I think at that point I think it actually is the the biggest piece of information, but then everything else, there's other elements that solidify that.
For this hearing.
Thank you. Any response?
Your Honor, just really briefly, I want to talk about item 226, the Hemisphere program. Ms. Jennings asked me if we meant the timing advance program. That's one and the same. I just heard her say that those records don't exist. I just
Like there's no sound.
then I need to know that. If they do exist and they were used, I need to have them. She mentioned that item 250, that's the balance training records that we had. That
Hey, thanks, Ginger, for the PayPal.
we don't have that. That's balance training records related to the use of the Gladiator machine. We don't have those. 251 is partially complied with. That's the certificate on whether the Gladiator machine was working appropriately. We need the follow-up the next time that machine was put back for testing. Both machines, there were two. 263 and 264, Balance and Kennedy's past training records. I'm happy to hear that I'm going to get those. With regard to the videos on exhibit RR that the court has under number 21, this is where the business said they already had given over their videos, and Ampersand and One World Cafe are both listed on that as well. So they were given to somebody to go to Moscow Police Department at some point in time. And that's it for clarifications for me. Thank you.
Great. Excellent. Anything else? Okay, great.
Thanks, Bryce
All right.
Jones.
A lot of work there for all of you. Maybe a lot. But finally take a break.
I think I knew a Bryce
And-
Jones.
We're supposed to start the second chapter here when we start at 2:00. That's okay. All right. So we'll recess. Thank you.
I don't think he was doing. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what Kohberger was doing. I don't think he had his phone on for GPS purposes at all, really. I think he had it turned off and then he would turn it back on. But I think he must have used GPS for the mapping at some point. I don't know. I don't know what he was doing. I have no idea. Because if he used the mapping software after he turned his phone back on, then it would be using GPS. And he would have had it turned on. So I guess, I mean, if he was using some spoofing thing that you're saying, it might show that he's somewhere else, but I don't know. I don't think so. I think he thought he was really smart, but turns out he was kind of dumb. I mean, who the hell sits in a kitchen wearing gloves, separating trash out of a garbage can to get rid of all your DNA on it, and thinks somehow that seems normal to family members? But that's it, you guys. There you go. We got through it. All right. So thank you to Joel Sane. Spoofing with hacker can relocate your GPS location. Huh. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he was that evolved, but sounds kind of like an interesting thing that people might be using, Bryce. I knew a Bryce Jones when I was in high school, if you can believe that. Thanks, Joel Sane, Skylar MacLeod, Wendy Van Rokel, Wool Lab, Jessica Schubach, Ivan Victor, Paulette Leonard, Lisa Valenzuela, Holly Miranda, Holly, Joel Sane, Don Spain. Then I gifted 5 memberships. Then Linda, Whitney, new member, Kim Christian, M. Jordan Jardin, Bridget Bauman gifted a membership. Then King, Scarlet News, Kylie, S. Jab, Weather 22, Alex, Kylie, S. Jab, Weather 22, then Bryce Jones, right there at the end. Yeah, I guess why would you do that? Well, I guess you could, because the cell tower location would still show where you're at. I don't know what he was doing, but not a bad thought there. Not a bad thought. Yeah, she said he seemed like he was 5'10" or taller. He is. He's 6 foot. I mean, 5'10" is very close to 6 foot. Yeah, right. Listen, everybody. Bryan Kohberger's the killer. He's been arrested. He has no bail. He's the guy. He's the one driving his Elantra around late at night. He even admits to it, that he drove his Elantra late at night because he knows that some of the Elantras that are on camera, or all of them, are actually his car, but he's trying to make it seem like he was just out and about. Well, he admits to that. Then a white Elantra with no front license plate does 4 laps around the 1122 King Road address. And on the 4th lap, it actually stops at behind the house at 4:08. And the murders happen between 4:08 and 4:20 as the car speeds away at a high rate of speed. So the murders likely happen between 4:10 and like 4:18. So an 8-minute period, which is easily doable. I've made videos showing you the amount of time. It's ridiculous. And then inside that time that he was in the house, a knife sheath was left in the house with his DNA on it, the same time that Elantra was parked. So therefore, the white Elantra is Bryan Kohberger's Elantra, because his DNA was found on the knife sheath. Then 28 minutes later, his phone turns on 28 minutes later south of Moscow, Idaho, and then eventually makes its way back around, goes into Pullman, Washington. At 5:25, it's seen on camera coming back in on Bishop Avenue. Then he is tracked. DNA led to his father, and then thus a search warrant was allowed. They then went into arrest, or actually an arrest warrant was issued. They arrest Bryan Kohberger, and while they're doing that, they notice that he's sitting at a table with gloves on, separating his trash out of the garbage can to make sure his DNA isn't in his own garbage can, which is stupid. That means Bryan Kohberger is an idiot, because if his father's DNA is in there, it's going to match him very closely, 50%, and it's still going to lead to him. It's not his father who did it. He went to come pick you up, right? He's the one that did it, and he's washing his car, etc., etc., etc. I mean, how do you get past all those things I just mentioned to you? You don't. So it's weird to me that you got all these people out there that are so hell-bent on freeing a psycho, a killer. Yeah. Anyways, all right, everybody. Thank you very much for being here. And we knew about the brow before everybody else did. Yeah, I knew about it like a month before it showed up in that document. And yeah, I even brought it up on the show prior just to make sure, to let you guys know that I knew that. I just kept it secret because somebody told me that one of the witnesses saw somebody with a bushy eyebrows. Remember that? So anyways, thank you guys for being here tonight. We'll see you tomorrow. And as I always say, until next time, be safe out there. I'll try to catch the next hearing live. All right. See you guys later. Boom. Yeah, I've been doing this true crime thing for quite a while now. Yeah, and during this whole time, by the way, would any of you be that paranoid after you got pulled over twice that you'd start separating your
crime
DNA?
Dissector, plug rejector. I'm a certified human
Lie
lie
detector, I'm gonna get ya on a stretcher if you try and play me like an old projector.
Crime sector is my nectar. Professor Gregor's gonna give another lecture. Crime collector,
Freak connector,
and I'm always gonna be a protector.
fool reflector, interceptor.
And I'm meaner than a spectre with a vector on his pector. With all respect, y'all, just remember I've a temple fucking checked ya.
I have no agenda, I'm a pretender.
And I'll serve it to you straight without the blender. And in the end,
I've already covered that one, Ginger.
On a
What do you
mission
mean?
to reveal the true offender.
I've covered the possible
Yeah, so I'll
serial
just get right
killer
back to
out
work.
west.
All right,
Are
everybody?
you talking about the Portland one, Ginger? I've covered that a million times. I even went out to all the different sites, filmed it and everything. What do you mean? I just covered it the other night. I don't understand what you're asking. Hey, FarQ. What do you mean, all of the ones? What do you mean? Oh, you mean the... oh, you're talking about the Ghosts of Highway 20, that one? Or... Yeah, that's right. We're going to go back over those. I thought you were talking about the one recently, the kind of, within the last year, that one. Oh, you're talking about the Ghost of Highway 20. That's right. I was going to do that. To go try to find that. But it's reading. Man, you guys hate that. All right, guys. Thanks for being here. We'll see you later. And as I always say, until next time, be safe out there.
And be safe out there.
Yeah, I just said that. I know, I just said the Ghost of Highway 20, yeah.
Good night, everybody.